Call the Independence Township Planning Commission meeting to order at 6:31 PM, Thursday, June 16th. And at this time, ask everyone to stand, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Independence Township Planning Commission meeting. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room on my left. Agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the township website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. State law establishes planning commissions. The Planning Commission is comprised of 7 residents appointed to serve their community. Members are appointed by the supervisor and confirmed by the township board. Other individuals participating in the meeting this evening include representatives of the township's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates, the township's engineering consultant, Hubelroth and Clark, the township's attorney, the Kelly firm, and the township planner, Brian Ottman. If you wish to address the Planning Commission, please come forward to the podium when recognized and provide your name and address to the sign-in sheet for the public record. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the Planning Commission, not to anyone else in the room. If you have a cell phone or any other device that's going to make noise, please right now reach into your pocket or your purse or your jacket and ensure that it's turned off or on silent mode so it doesn't disturb the meeting. And at this time, I ask the Planning Commission Secretary to conduct the roll call.
Mr. Boersma, absent. Mr. Galley.
Here.
Mr. Loughran, absent. Mr. Patel.
Here.
Mr. Ritchie.
Here.
Chairman Salvadan.
Here.
Ms. Tully, here.
We have 5 out of 7 members present. That represents a quorum. We can proceed with the meeting. Next item on the agenda is item D, review of the agenda. And what I would like to do is move up item G, regular business, which is G1, PC file number 2022-08, zoning ordinance text amendment, section 11.08, lake access regulations. The township supervisor, Gerald Fisher, is here, and what I'd like to do is have him make the presentation so that we can, so he can leave and enjoy his evening before we get to the fun stuff. If that's okay, I make a motion that we amend the agenda to move that up to after item E before item F.
I'll support.
We have a motion and a support. Any discussion? We have a roll call, please.
Mr. Boersma, absent. Mr. Galley.
Yes.
Mr. Loughran, absent. Mr. Patel.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie.
Yes.
Chairman Salvadan.
Yes.
Ms. Tully, yes.
Thank you. Next item is item E, public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda. We've got 2 public hearings, so if you're here for the public hearings items, you'll be given a chance to speak, whether you're here participating in person or remotely. But is there anyone who wishes to speak for an item that is not on tonight's agenda? We'll start here in the audience. Please raise your hand if you want to speak about something that's not on the agenda. Seeing no one, is there anyone online who wishes to speak to an item that is not on tonight's agenda? Last call. Hearing no one, we move on. Let the record show no one wanted to speak. Next item is item F, public hearings. And what we're going to do for each of these.
I thought it was G.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't even.
I have one comment too.
Yeah.
Before you begin, I see Mr. Boersma online. Can he attend online, or did he intend to, or?
No, he can't.
Okay, he can't anymore? Okay.
He can attend, he just can't participate.
Okay, I was just asking. All right. Sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I've got a good memory, just a really short memory. I didn't make note when we changed the agenda. So the next item has been moved up to, it's item G, regular business, PC file number 2022-08, zoning ordinance text amendment, section 11.08, lake access regulations. Just before we proceed, we've got a very busy agenda tonight. We've got a packed audience here. So my goal tonight is not to discuss this at great length. I think it's it's reasonable to have the township supervisor explain this, summarize it. If there are questions for the supervisor or for the attorney, we can certainly ask those questions. But I think it would be more appropriate to have a detailed discussion in a public hearing format so residents can participate. That's my feeling with a busy agenda. If anyone wishes to make a motion to do otherwise, fine, but that's how I'd like to proceed this evening. Is everyone okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to be here and to move me up on the agenda. It isn't that I'm not interested in what's coming up. I am, but probably just as well that I'm not here for that, actually. So I'm basically here to briefly, with emphasis on briefly, introduce this ordinance amendment to the zoning ordinance relating to permissible regulation of boat docking on lakes in the township. So the first question that comes to your mind, I'm sure, is why is the supervisor here introducing this subject when you've got perfectly good people with Carlisle and Ms. Ellis and everything like that. So the truth is that I prepared this, and I was a local attorney, government attorney for many years. My special area, or one of my special areas, was boat docking regulation in local governments, particularly townships. And just to develop my credibility, not boasting, but developing my credibility, I want to just mention that there are two major cases in Michigan, in the Michigan Supreme Court, on the subject of township regulation of boat docking, and they're both my cases. So I've done that, and I was called upon by the Department of Natural Resources to help them develop a manual on boat docking regulation. So my point is that it's a subject I've got a lot of experience with, and I had an opportunity to review this section 11.08 of the zoning ordinance and concluded that I think it's a good ordinance. The policy is excellent, but I thought that I might be able to improve it, and I'll just give you a couple of reasons why. You know, no intent to change the policy for the township, but as they always say, the devil is in the details. You know, you have to look at the details, and I'm not going to look at all the details. I know you have a lot of things on your agenda, but one detail that is relevant here concerns one family, single family lakefront owners that they have their dock out there and they probably have their boats, they may or may not, but then they allow others to use their docks. And the truth is that is
Yeah. I'm good. I'm in a Zoom meeting right now.
we're doing pretty well. Yeah.
No. Yeah, it's
The mute button is your friend.
So it doesn't sound like a significant thing. One person allows one other person to use their dock and all that. But what happens on a cumulative basis around the lake, you have the potential of really doing a lot of damage in that way. And it's an emotional issue for people. The cumulative impact can be great. And I know that there are people on other lakes in Oakland County that actually have a cottage industry of renting spaces on their docks to various people and supplementing their income. So it's a multifamily use in a single family zone, and the current ordinance can be interpreted that it intends to do something with that, but the language just is not as clear as it could be. The second detail worth mentioning is the particular language used to spell out the regulations. Now, having been involved in a lot of these cases over the years, I can tell you that judges are not that familiar with riparian rights and boat docking. They don't get these kind of cases on a regular basis. And so what happens, what you have to do is relate the case law, the old case law that has developed over the years, to your ordinance. And what happens is you look at all the old case law, and it refers to riparian property and riparian rights, and these riparians doing this and that and so forth. But the ordinance as it has been drafted doesn't use that language. It uses things like day usage, direct water access, and private access property, and things like that. And they're kind of intermingled in a way that, that makes it more difficult for anybody to understand it. And I'm not criticizing the ordinance, because, you know, it's been laid out in a systematic way. But just in terms of resolving things, and the ultimate objective of this kind of ordinance is to keep peace and safety on the lake and stop disputes. And so the thing you want to do is be clear so that you don't have a dispute about whether we can do this, we can't do this. And so that was my goal, and inserting the language from the case law was not that difficult to do. And so, in conclusion, you never thought a lawyer could speak in such short order. In conclusion, because the boating season is moving along, and potential developments can come along at any time. There's one particular property around, actually more than one. I would just ask the commission to set this for public hearing when everybody can delve into it in greater detail.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Fisher? No. Mr. Galley, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Questions?
No.
You did such an amazing job of presenting that there are no questions.
How about that? Either that or I left out everything.
So, does anyone want to move forward a date? A potential date for public hearing?
Do we have to set that in the motion? So we do?
Or we can direct the township planner to seek a date if you want to allow him to do that. I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, to me, it's
Yep.
just set the
Yep.
best schedule.
So we can make a motion to direct the township planner to set a date for public hearing.
I was looking to see if there was I'm trying to get to the one page. Sorry. I guess I was ready to jump around here.
But sooner rather than later, because as Mr. Fisher said, boating season is here. So,
It's over quickly as well.
Yeah. Were you looking for the agenda so that you could make a motion,
Yeah,
Mr. Ritchie?
that's-
Okay.
Basically, I'll make a motion on file PC 2022-08 zoning ordinance text amendment for section 11.08 lake access regulations, that we set a public hearing at the next most opportune time for planning commission to have a public hearing and review the ordinance per the I guess submitted text from the township.
I'll second. Any discussion on this matter? Can we do a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Boersma, absent. Mr. Galley.
Yes.
Mr. Lockren, absent. Mr. Patel.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie.
Yes.
Chairman Sabada.
Yes,
Ms. Tully, yes.
Thank you very much.
thank you. Next item on the agenda is item F, public hearing. Item F1 is PC file number 2022-005. The petitioner is Walden Village 2 LLC. The property is located on the north side of Walden Road, west of Sashabaw Road. Parcel number 822-351-061, zoned PUD, planned unit development. And they are requesting minor PUD amendment, including final site plan approval for phase 4 of the development, consisting of 78 detached condominiums. Mr. Carlisle, could you summarize this item, please?
Excuse me. This item is back before you for consideration of a minor amendment after the Planning Commission did decide to allow for the consideration of this as a minor amendment versus a major amendment, as was decided previously by the Planning Commission. The reason that, and I'll be very brief about this particular aspect, you know, the reason that this is being requested as a minor amendment is for a change in phasing. And what the applicant is requesting to do is to proceed with what was designated as Phase 4 now, prior to the initiation of Phase 3. As we have pointed out, as well as the township attorney, the ordinance is pretty explicit that the consideration of a change in phasing is a minor amendment, which would be subject to a planning commission decision. The distinction is major amendments require a public hearing and essentially a decision that needs to be a recommendation from the commission that goes on to the township board. And there's a whole list of criteria of what constitutes a major amendment. Minor amendment are considered to be things that are not a change in the overall concept of the development, including a change in phasing. That decision rests solely with the planning commission as to whether it is whether it can be considered as a minor amendment, and so that would not need to be then passed on to the township board. Are there any questions about that? Now's the time to ask, if there are. If you would go back to my May 3rd report, that actually specifies exactly what the nature of the request is as a minor change. And as I said, again, a minor change considers factors which do not materially change the project. So in essence, the overall concept, the layout, the road layout, with some variations, the density, the dimensional requirements, those aren't being asked to be changed. What is being asked to be changed, which the ordinance does permit your consideration of, is a change in the phasing of the project. Every other aspect about Phase 4, obviously subject to your final site plan review, which is also part of your consideration, is considered, your final site plan review is also a separate action that you would need to take upon consideration of the change in phasing as a minor amendment.
So in terms of process, Mr. Carlisle, for this, if we were to move this item forward with a positive recommendation this evening, first step is a determination that it's a minor amendment.
Correct.
And then second step is a recommendation moving it forward to the township board
For site plan approval.
for site plan approval.
Yeah, the final site plan will need to go before the township board because that has not yet occurred.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're really looking at two potential actions tonight. One is the consideration of the change in phasing as a minor amendment, and then secondly, the review of the site plan and a recommendation to the township board in regards to the site plan itself.
Okay.
Okay?
Any questions for Mr. Carlisle regarding either the project or the process? Thank you. I
Okay.
notice Mr. Silverman's here. We had quite a lengthy presentation, if I recall correctly, at the last meeting. I don't think we have to repeat that presentation, but Mr. Silverman, welcome. Do you have anything to add?
To the chairman and the commission, staff, and folks that are present, I want to thank everyone for their time tonight. And we're looking forward to presenting our Phase 4 single-family homes with condominium living. Very pleased the way the development has gone to date. And if we had a crystal ball when we numbered these phases, we would have numbered this Phase 3 and the other one Phase 4. But as it goes, we continue working with your commission and with staff in the town to do the right job. So thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for either Mr. Silverman, the developer, or Mr. Carlisle?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we do
Yes.
have a short presentation if that's possible.
That is possible, absolutely. Mr. Epic, I didn't see you there, I apologize.
I was on camera last time. Mr. Chairman, I will make this incredibly brief. To your point, we've presented before. Thank you. Excuse me. Again, Jim Epping of J. Epping Partners.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is an important point.
Yes, please.
Since the time has lapsed here, I may have confused the issue because I do believe, as I'm looking, as Brian has pointed out to me, the minutes of May 26th with your special meeting, here was the motion of the Planning Commission. Commissioner Loughran moved to declare this Walden Village 2 PUD phasing amendment to be considered a minor amendment as set forth in Independence Township zoning ordinance, supported by Commissioner Pytel. And it passed by a 4-to-1 vote with Commissioners Boersma and Ritchie absent. So I believe you made that decision.
Okay.
You know, sorry for obscuring it.
I thought I misremembered, so thank you for clarifying, because I was going off.
I obviously
Yeah.
did misremember.
Yeah, okay. So it's one action item tonight, potentially, because we've already made the determination that
Correct.
it's a minor amendment. Okay, good, thank you.
Sorry. No, thanks.
That helps, thank you.
Just going back from watching the meeting, since I wasn't here, you guys did pass it as a minor, but you had some like caveats that you wanted to add with that if moving forward as well. So I guess I don't know. I didn't hear that in what was being read. So
Could you read the resolution that was passed, including the conditions or the recommendations?
After the motion was made, Commissioner Pytel asked about putting teeth into the language. Commissioners discussed language that could be used. This could be discussed at the meeting in June. Mr. Carlisle stated that they could discuss at the June meeting circumstances that would satisfy the commission. That's essentially it.
So there were no specific recommendations as part of the resolution?
No, from my recollection, the conversation centered around some sort of financial or, guarantee, which is in the
Okay.
permit conditions already,
Okay,
so.
thank you. Mr. Epping, welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated, we're here again, appreciate the opportunity. The development across the street, Walden Village, is going along really ahead of schedule. We're keeping a close eye on it. Met with some of the neighbors this week to maintain, living up to every promise that we've made. I think Pulte Homes is the residential builder for both the townhomes under construction, the single family under construction, and who will be the builder for the Park Villas is obviously doing their normal best work. What we're proposing tonight is 78 single-family homes, what we've called Park Villas. These are detached condominium-style living. There's an awful lot of information in your packet in terms of square footage, building types. We've got about 28 different elevations on 3 different floor plans. All of the homes will be 2-bedroom homes with an optional 3-bedroom, 3rd bedroom in either a loft or a first floor 3rd bedroom, but as a standard, they'll all be 2 bedrooms. We're limiting it to no more than 3 bedrooms, so there's no risk of these becoming, larger single-family homes. All the Park Villa homes here, including all the townhomes and all the single-family homes, Pulte Homes and Joe Score are making as part of the base package, the installation and construction of the decks, so that in all 3 residential types, the decks are fitting within the approved building envelope and setback, And in fact, if anybody was to choose an optional sunroom, that would also fit. But we've had, with all sorts of developments throughout the township, issues with decks, and so we wanted to just say, let's build the decks and make sure that those are part and parcel of the approved building and approved C of O. The landscaping, we've modified and increased based on Mr. Carlisle's recommendation. We've going back to a pre-application for this component several months ago. We made some adjustments to the terminus of Walden Center Drive North, so we don't have a home there, and it's more of an opening to the park with pathways. Steve Pangori and AEW continue to work with Noack and Fraus and the township engineer to ensure that we've got the proper easements and so forth. So again, we're very confident with this next component. We think it's in exact keeping with the approved PUD. 78 homes, no more, were added, no additional adjustments were made, and all the setbacks remain consistent with what was approved or even greater. So with that, we're happy to answer your question and look forward to a positive recommendation to the Township Board for approval of this component. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Epping or Mr. Silverman? No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add something
Yes.
to Mr. Epping's excellent presentation, please.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Along with the development of this phase is the shared infrastructure. So the entrance and the extension of Walden Center North and the all of the storm sewer, sanitary sewer, and water lines necessary for both phases 4 and 3, right in the range of about $2 million worth of infrastructure. And this language is within the permit conditions. So when we talked after the last planning commission meeting among ourselves, we thought, you know, there already is great teeth in this, because in order for this phase to go forward, we are putting in all of this infrastructure in order to have it all available there for the commencement of phase 3. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. In other words, for those concerned that he's not going to invest in the commercial component, phase 4, he is investing already with the infrastructure, which is approaching $2 million.
Exactly.
Any questions for the developer or the developer's landscape architect, Mr. Epping? Okay. We're gonna move towards the public hearing. You have a question? Go ahead.
I guess I want to hear the public hearing first, but I mean, I guess I was going to bring up the thing about the pre-site meeting and
Okay.
some of the things that were on there. We can do that after.
We'll do that after.
All right.
So there are 2 public hearings on the agenda this evening. A public hearing is an opportunity for residents to share their comments on a specific project with the Planning Commission. Everyone in attendance this evening, either remotely or in person, who wishes to speak will be provided with an opportunity to speak. We appreciate everyone who came out tonight to share their thoughts with the Planning Commission. Your comments are important. Before I open the public hearing, it's important to set up some ground rules so that it can be an effective and efficient public hearing. Please begin your comments by stating your name and address for the public record. Please address all comments to the Planning Commission. Please be respectful of the Planning Commission, the consultants, the applicants, and other members of the audience. And this is an opportunity for residents to provide comment. It's not a discussion, it's not a debate. And please, no talking, no clapping, no cheering during the meeting. It doesn't help in any way. So I'm gonna open up the public hearing. And I'm gonna start by offering anyone who's in attendance in person this evening who wishes to speak on this item, please come to the podium, sign in, and we'd love to hear what you have to say. Don't all rush the podium at one time. Okay, so there's no one, let the record show that no one in the audience wishes to speak on this item. Is there anyone attending remotely who wishes to speak on this item? Last call? Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing, given that no one either in person or remotely wishes to speak. At about 7:01, and I'm going to bring it back to the board, and I'm going to remind those in attendance that we are a recommending body. This is not a final determination. We are
Go ahead.
we are making a recommendation this evening, and the final decision is under the authority of the township board.
I just wanted to remind the commission that I did provide a review of the site plan to you that's dated May 3rd, 2022. Mr. Longhurst has also done a review that the commission has had in their hands for some time. There were just a couple of suggestions in my review that I wanted to make the commission aware of. A minor item that the parking calculations needed to be corrected. But the other issue is, I wanted, there were two other, again, I think they're not, relatively minor items, but certainly ones that I think are important. We did ask for additional buffering between units 36 and 41, and essentially those are the units that back up to I-75. And the second thing was to approve condition on units not exceeding 3 bedrooms, and also specifying, even though they've said it, and I certainly believe Mr. Hepnick, that decks will be provided with each unit. So I would like to ask the commission to include both of those items of any recommendation of approval that you make, so that we see those reflected in the revised site plans. Okay?
Yep. And Mr. Longhurst, you had a memo that you prepared for the previous meeting that would also carry over to this meeting.
Correct, yep.
Any highlights you want to hit on right now?
A couple of very small items relative to the location of the mail kiosks and providing pedestrian access to them. And then the other item was having the applicant work with the DPW to secure the necessary easements for a water main extension to Fleming's Lake Road.
Yep. Great, thank you. Mr. Ritchie, you had some comments or some questions?
Yeah, I just, at our last meeting I attended it anyway, which was 2 meetings ago, there was some discussion about the pre-application meeting, and some items that were discussed at that meeting, whether they were included on the updated site plan or not. Mr. Galliano, are you?
Yeah, I have a couple of them of note. I think I mentioned in the last meeting, if you want me to mention them.
Please.
As well as Mr. Carlisle mentioning the buffering I-75, I have a note that we were gonna require heavier buffering of, I believe, units 9 to 17. I think I saw a note on one plot map that said see adjacent map for plan, but I couldn't find it anywhere in the submission. I can't see it anywhere, so I don't know if, while we're talking, if Mr. Epnick could find it, or if we can find it on screen and pull it up, but I personally can't find it anywhere. I did have a note about the water loop connection as well, and I think our DPW director said that was a mandatory. And then I also have Unit 21 circled as like, what are we gonna do with the snow in this area with all those houses piled up on the cul-de-sac? I kinda thought somebody was saying that there's no purpose for Unit 21 being there. I may have misheard it or be misrepresenting it, but I was under the assumption that that was gonna be gone and it was gonna be open space, but that's the way I heard it. So that was my list, that's all.
He's gonna pull it up here, but certainly you can
Okay.
respond, Mr. Epping.
Absolutely. Well, starting with Mr. Carlisle and Mr. Lockhorn, we agree with everything. Absolutely, we'll address the decks in the submission that would go to the Township Board, as well as increase that landscape along 75. The mail kiosk and pedestrian access to those is a good point, and we'll rectify that. In terms of the water main, maybe I'll let Mr. Silverman weigh in on that. We certainly have the opportunity within our property to provide easements for a future water main. We really don't have much ability to work with adjacent private landowners to secure easements within their land, but maybe Mr. Silverman would like to weigh in on that, and then I'll go through Mr. Galley's comments as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Is that okay?
Yes, it is, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the optimism, Mr. Epping. We do have an excellent relationship with the Hess family, who lives north of our property. And we did agree to work with the township and township engineers in order to work towards obtaining a future easement for the eventual connection of a water loop up, I believe it's up to Fleming's Lake. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, yes. So we're prepared to go forward and to work with the township to make that vision happen.
Thank you. Could you address the comments that Mr. Galley made, please?
Absolutely. In terms of the buffers of units 9 through 17, those are essentially here. With the previous phases, the townhomes and the single families had pretty significant landscape requirements, and those were met, of course, within those phases. So obviously, this is one unified master plan. There are no fences, there are no separations, so there's significant landscaping planned for all along here that's been approved and certainly will be installed as these townhomes are built. The thought there was then that the multifamily would have that buffer between them. We do provide landscaping really along the entire way, but that, when I say referring to the adjacent development, it's really our own development, just the previous phase. A little different in the sense of the single family with the single family homes being built off of Walters Road. In our township ordinance, multifamily has a greater responsibility in terms of landscape buffering to single family. So in the case of phase 2, the single family, they weren't required to provide that landscape buffer to what would be the future multifamily. And so with this phase and in the landscape package that you have, you'll see much more significant landscape buffering, not only against our single family, but also against the Hess family up here, that landscape buffering. So both within this phase that you're considering now, thank you, Jason, and when we consider the earlier phase, there's really a tremendous amount. We meet and exceed the landscape ordinance within the township. The additional landscape buffering along 75, certainly within the right-of-way, there's going to be a lot of existing trees. We'll maintain some of those trees, but we'll add some additional evergreens to give that year-round buffering.
Just to, sorry to interrupt you for 1 second, Jim. Yeah, I appreciate the single family. That's a little bit different scenario, but I think the comment in the meeting was that what was on the plan didn't seem sufficient between the multifamily and this new phase, that it should be beefed up a little bit. And again, it may be something that, you know, one person said and I wrote it down or whatnot, but I thought it was beef up what was there. So I was expecting to see a new plan on it, but that was my recollection anyway. I just wanted to make that clear.
Well, I'm happy to revisit it, and as we say, as we resubmit plans going to the township board, should your commission make a recommendation, we'll take a look at that and add to that. But I think combination of the existing proposed landscape for the first phase and this will make sure that works.
Mr. Chairman, can I get some clarification? We're talking about actually, I think it's the 4 units there, Brian.
Yeah,
Because
I have a hard time on the computer scheme. Maybe it's 9
It's a-
through 13 or something.
I
Really,
think it's 9
Here you
through
go.
13.
These right
is where-
here.
okay.
Yeah, the multifamily part there.
right here.
Yeah, because then you have a bigger open space as you go farther
Right.
to the east.
And there is significant landscaping, but specifically right there,
Correct.
We'll double
That was
down on it.
probably the comment.
okay, I think that makes sense.
What's that?
You're,
Yeah, like this area.
Yeah, 9 through 13.
Or 9 through 12.
Yeah. He said 17 originally, but
Yeah.
we'll say
9
12.
through, I think 17 came all the way up to here, but it's really these.
I'm
Yeah,
challenged on this.
like 9 through 12, 13, that area, so.
Okay.
What I'd like to do moving forward is, and I appreciate the phone core boards, it's helpful for us. It's not very helpful for people in the audience, so maybe we're past this for tonight, but moving forward, I noticed it's kind of cumbersome, it's moving real slow last couple meetings. What I'd like is to, next time, is to point out
Makes
things on the screen so everyone can follow.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
We'll make sure we do that.
Yeah.
The last question Mr. Gailey pointed out were the 4 homes that are in, I'll call it the really enlarged cul-de-sac at the end of the development, furthest north or to the right of this plan. We've always had 4 homes planned in that area. Back at the pre-application, 3 of those faced, again, on this drawing, north is to your right, south is to the left. Previously at the pre-application meeting, we had 3 homes facing south and 1 facing north. We rotated those for a number of reasons. We actually had a larger area along what is the western boundary to face those homes. And then as AEW got into the engineering, we also have a storm sewer that's coming through between those 3 homes and the 1 detached. Plans are a little deceiving, and I've been doing them my whole life, and I'm still deceived. If we go over to phase 1 and we look at this park that's built over here, which is about half the size of what's proposed in this component, this park over in the single-family area is really huge. It's much, much larger than the green space in front of the Township Hall here. And so what we're talking about is a green space that's probably 4 to 5 times the size of, at least that, of the front lawn of this building. And so I understand the concern of open space and of snow and all those different things. I'm really confident, especially when we compare it to the size of this park that's being built right now, that's a very large area. It certainly will accommodate those 4 single-family homes, and in addition to that, we've got a small little pocket park on the north end of it and quite a bit of green space. So we've added landscaping. Your packets show landscaping between those buildings. We still have all the normal setbacks, and so in terms of driveway length, snow plowing, sidewalks, that's all included in that area.
You okay? More questions?
No more questions?
I guess, my only comment on that was, since I was a part of the pre-application meeting and I didn't get a chance to interject that, but listen to some of the comments that were made, is going back, and as there's quite a few homes going through phase 4, going back through the road there. To me, there's other than that cul-de-sac area at the end, there's no place to plow if you have a heavy snowfall. Where are you going to put the snow? Because there's no breaks in any of the homes or anything to do that. And I guess then my second factor is, besides the where you would push snow to of any accumulation, all is there. I know there's parking on the street, but there typically on any of these types of developments, whatever, there would be some I guess open parking spots where if people have a party at their house, whatever, they can have multiple cars parked, and there's not one of those anywhere along that road at all. So I guess that's when we talked about Unit 21. To me, that would be a good exchange for not only put the snow, but also maybe some areas for extra parking as well. So.
May I respond?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie, I think that those are fair and valid points. What we've done here is we've designed the road system really to meet county standards in terms of road width and setback between the back of curb and the sidewalk. So although the term condominium is used, and most of the neighborhoods in Independence Township are either true condominiums or site condominiums, just the way the ordinance and the state laws are set up, it really will, in terms of dimensions, look and feel and be a very traditional neighborhood within our development, within our community, I should say. And so with snow plowing, it really, in my opinion, I don't think will function or operate any differently than any of our other neighborhoods. There'll be the opportunity for either, most likely a private snow service to furl the snow, just like they do at my house or anybody else's house, over the curb into that area, that grass area between the sidewalk and the grass. We really don't, it's certainly not intended to be an apartment complex or anything even close to that, so there's not those traditional areas where we would pile snow, just like we don't in most other neighborhoods throughout our community. In terms of parking, we did go back and forth with that. What we are providing is every home will have a 2-car garage and a minimum of a 2-car driveway. So 4 cars per home off-street. We also have spaces, the way we've arranged the driveways to try and butterfly them. We've got large enough parking areas between every other driveway, assuming parking on one side of the street where you'd park 1, if not two cars. So why I try, and this is just a planning and a design thing, why I try and accommodate cars on either the driveways, the garages, or where we can on the street, is I just think it builds a more traditional neighborhood. And when I look through Independence Township and the Clarkston area, we have, predominantly 95% of our streets are very traditional, don't have a lot of ancillary parking spots that tend to make it look like a different type of neighborhood, I guess. So it was really a deliberate move on my part to build a traditional neighborhood.
Just a comment, I guess, density is always scary to a lot of people, and some of the developments that we've done in the past that are very dense turned out to be very popular and very good neighborhoods. So, I mean, I'm not saying that. I guess to me, this is our chance to make sure we don't do something wrong with a new neighborhood, and I think, we need to explore all these alternatives as much as possible, so.
Completely agree. The nice part with working with Joe Scorer and Pulte is in Independence Township, this is going to be very similar to a successful neighborhood over off of Clintonville, Pine Vista, also similar to developments that Pulte is building in other nearby communities, so similar type layouts and success.
That's it for me.
Any other questions? Yeah, I think with the intent here is to create an urban walkable community, like the same density. This looks like the same density as neighborhoods in Royal Oak or Birmingham or Ferndale. I mean, it's that it's to that density, generally speaking, and I think a lot of people here are going to be walking to the restaurant, Starbucks, the gym, the world-class marketplace with all the cool amenities that's going to be constructed on this site, et cetera. So, I'm concerned with snow removal and other things as well, but, in my neighborhood, all the snow seems to wind up in my driveway, and I just shovel it onto my yard, and it's no problem, so. Regarding the, I'm not making light, I agree snow plowing is an issue,
100% an issue.
but I also think that, we've been dealing with it in an urban environment for 100 years. And I think generally speaking, we do a pretty good job of it. Regarding the landscaping, I want this to pop with landscaping as well. You're indicating the landscaping between the different densities is compliant or exceeds zoning ordinance requirements. And as far as the relationship with interior to this development, so if it's multifamily as part of the development that backs up to single family as part of this development, I'm not as concerned with it because it's still exceeding, but it's buyer beware. It's people that are buying here, they're buying into this density and the distance between buildings. So if it meets and exceeds the ordinance, it's different for the neighbors that are there now. I wanted to, but this is buyer beware, and this is people who want to live here. So I'm okay with the landscaping that's there now. I respect Brian's concerns. I wanted to pop landscaping, but I'm hearing it is.
It will.
So,
I mean, it's
yeah.
it's a beautiful neighborhood. It certainly is going to be a green neighborhood. In terms of density, again, diagrams can be deceiving. This density of this component, it's about almost 20 acres, a little over 19 acres. It's about 3.9 units per acre just for this particular component. So, yeah, that's probably even less than what you might find in Royal Oak.
Yeah.
But it's a master plan community where we've got single family, we've got townhomes, we've got these detached condo residences, and then we'll have the commercial. So it really is buyer beware sounds ominous, but I think you're right. It's, people are gonna move here because of its proximity, not only to the amenities we're offering, but walkable to Sashaba and to the school and everything else. It's
Yeah.
already proving to be great.
I think buyer beware, that's my words, and
No,
it's
I
a
agree.
poor choice of words, but I think
Lifestyle.
it's a
choice.
lifestyle, so when
It's
they,
a
when they
lifestyle.
go and they go to buy the unit, they're gonna walk into the showroom and there's gonna be a plan that looks like this, and they're buying a piece of the puzzle for this whole thing, so they're on board
I think that's
with
right.
that relationship, so.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I just had one more thing I forgot to ask. Is all phase 4 gonna be one homeowner association?
Yes, so each of the components, I stopped using the word phase, by the way. Each of the components will have homeowners associations, and then, of course, they'll have cross easement accesses and relationships with each other.
Well, that's what I wanted to get to is, so it's a separate homeowner association, but, for this group of, I guess, I keep wanting to say
Homeowners.
phase, but,
Yeah.
well, for
Component.
this group of homes and stuff, so, but there will be interactive, agreements between the, units? For
Yes, absolutely.
That covers any disputes about roads and that type of stuff.
Correct. Again, between Mr. Silverman and his team, and then with Pulte being the developer, the home builder for all three residential components, it makes it easier, but they'll have agreements unto themselves with each other, and obviously that all goes through the township for, as the part of the final approval.
Right. Okay.
Okay, any other questions, concerns?
Appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you. We are a recommending body. We're not approving or denying this evening. I'd like to move it on, though, with a recommendation, so the township board can utilize their authority and make a final determination on the site plan. So do we have someone who wants to forward a motion?
So it'd be that, I move that we proceed on PC file number 2022005, petitioner Walden Village LLC 2, LLC. And I stopped there, correct?
Well, you would, we're making a recommendation for,
To approve this to the,
to recommend approval. Yeah.
recommend approval to the township board
Yep, of the final site plan.
of phase 4 of the final site plan, correct?
Yes. And as motion maker, you may also want to include the recommendations of the planning consultant report and the engineering consultant report,
So
Comments by the board?
So recommended.
and comments by the board. And with that motion, which was eloquently stated,
Thank you, sir.
I will second. Do we have discussion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Boersma, absent. Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Lockren, absent. Mr. Patel,
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie,
Yes.
Chairman Sabada.
Yes.
Ms. Tully, yes.
You have a recommendation of approval, and your next step is the township board. Thank you for your time.
Thank you to the members of the commission, staff, and all of the residents and our team present. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, item F2, PC file number 2022-006, petitioner Clearview Homes LLC. The subject property is located on the east side of Mabee Road, north of Morgan Lake Road, parcel number 0836201006, presently zoned PRD, which stands for Planned Residential Development, and they are requesting an amended planned residential development with the addition of 4.79 acres and the approval of an amendment to Phase 2 of the development. Mr. Carlisle.
Yes, we're really considering a couple of amendments to the Morgan Lake, Eagle Ridge and Morgan Lake PRD. And the first one is considered to be major because it is adding property. And the 4.78 acres that is being added to it is an addition of property to the development, although it essentially doesn't create any, doesn't change the concept overall. And it really has resolved an issue that has been lingering since the beginning, frankly, with this landlocked piece and the disputed access easement to Roar Road from this piece. So the applicant has proceeded to purchase that property and is now incorporating it. What that results in is a request for an additional 4 lots as a result of that amendment, which brings the total number of lots to 234. Now, I want to clarify that because the permit conditions were approved at 228, but allowed an additional 2 units to 230 if the water supply issue was resolved to the satisfaction of the township. So there were really a couple of solutions to that resolution. It was either adding an additional well site on this property, in which I understand was never successful, being able to find adequate water supply, or 2, extending water under I-75 into the property, which that has been done, according to Mr. McKee, the Township DPW Director. So they've satisfied the conditions to be allowed to have 230 units, which was covered in the PRD documents. And as a result of the additional acreage that they're adding, they're asking for an additional 4 units. The second amendment is what we would consider to be minor. You may recall, not everybody, but some commissioners that have been on for a while, may recall that when Mr. Zervos wanted to proceed with phase 2, this dispute over the easement was really, at that time, not resolved and did not appear to be resolvable. So the portion that you see now that is being added to this property was originally part of phase 2. And we advised Mr. Zervos back then, is just show that as a future phase until you resolve, this issue is resolved. So what the applicant has done is added it back in as part of phase 2, which it originally was part of phase 2. So because that's technically a change in phasing by adding by adding back in a portion, I felt that this also constituted an amendment also when they're adding back in to phase 2 property that was previously part of it but taken out. You would have seen it before had this issue not have been resolved. Had this issue been resolved, you would have seen it before, but it was not. So those are really the two items, and the addition of the property, I think, really cleans up the entire plan and has resolved something that has been a point of contention for quite some time. So regarding that, I will be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Carlisle from the board? Go ahead.
One quick one. So I remember the case with the individual property owner that was trying to get the easement.
Correct.
Obviously, I was here. The other side of the lake was plotted, I assume, sometime back in 50s, 60s, or something like that. Was this side of that lake plotted as well? I thought I remember seeing an old plot map when the individual owners had that lot, and that was a series of lots that would have been along that side of the lake as well.
I think it was originally, and I think it was the Block brothers that originally had divided those into some acreage parcels, but that was a long time ago. And
Yeah.
that might have been a remaining parcel that wasn't acquired when Morgan Lake was originally conceived by, can't remember his name, back in 1990. And so this landlocked piece of property has been out there for a long time and has constantly been a point of dispute, yeah.
I just thought I had remembered seeing during that
I
case
think there
that
was, yeah.
that side of the lake
Yeah.
was, you know, original land plot from way back.
I do. I'm not sure they were ever, I've seen the drawings, I'm not sure they were, I'm unclear as, there's the record, the property records, and then even this easement, you know, were subject to quite a bit of discussion in terms of what the real meaning of it was. So,
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
I just had a question about this schematic.
yes,
It's showing a phase 3
correct.
and a phase 4, which we really haven't, I mean, they were pretty undefined last time they were talked about.
Well, I don't, I mean, phase 3 and phase 4, I think have really not changed for some time. Well, obviously it changed when the golf course went away, okay? But there's always been a phase 3 and phase 4 that has been south of the drain there, basically, which is the most remote part of the property. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I thought that we were talking about there could be some commercial as part of it.
Oh, there's never been any
Really?
commercial part of Morgan Lake, no. Mm-mm. It was
And-
always a golf course, PRD.
No, I mean, just recently, recently, 2 or 3 years ago, or whatever
No.
it was.
No,
No?
no,
Because I thought that was part of the issue of just having the one exit, was
no,
if there was commercial in there, it would create even more traffic.
no, there's
No?
never been any commercial ever conceived for this property. And because of the access issues was never, and, you know, the reason that all you have are emergency access to Roar Road was because of concerns raised by Roar Road residents as well as residents from Orion Township in that part of the township. But no, there has never been any commercial proposed. The only non-residential component was the golf course and the clubhouse. But that was up in the front part of the property.
Yeah. So eventually, these other phases will probably come forward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Maybe.
Any other questions for Mr. Carl?
I had one on the northern emergency gate, that access that's shown on here now, has that been established? I mean, we have approval to have that as an emergency exit?
Well, both Mr. Longhurst and Mar Review do comment about that, that there needs to be more specificity on the plans in that regard. And that's part of a site plan issue.
Right.
But yeah, that emergency access has been on the plans
I know
for a long
while.
time, yeah.
But I know those were kind of, I don't wanna say disputed, there was a lot of discussion about, you know, where they're gonna be and how they're gonna be used, so.
Yeah, well, it
Over the
cannot be a free-flowing access. It has to be gated and accessed only by emergency services.
Well, the southern one was more defined, I think, than the northern one. That's why I was just asking a question about.
Well, I think partly because it was in that curvature of the road, and there was some question about property over which it needed to pass, but I believe that there has been some resolution of that being part of the right-of-way, but there's some details that need to be worked out there.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Longhurst, are there any engineering concerns we should be worried about for this phase?
Just a few items from our letter here. I'll kind of give the highlights. A lot of the comments, like always, are, looking for items that we'll want to see in the final construction drawings. I do appreciate the history lesson on the access easement. That was the first item that we commented about, is what was being done with that. So having that noted on the plans going forward, that it'll be vacated. There do appear to be some potential impacts to either wetlands or wetland setback areas. So we want to make sure that those are all clearly identified on the plans going forward, and then any necessary permits and approvals are secured for that work. There's an access or a park that's shown going to Morgan Lake. Again, we were asking for some more detail if anything's proposed there, and if so, it should be noted on the plans. As Mr. Carlisle indicated, the emergency access to Roar Road was not very specific in what was being proposed there, so we wanted to see additional details to define what's going on and that it's gated and how it's going to be used and maintained. Looking for details on emergency vehicle access and circulation throughout the site, along with notation as to if on-street parking is going to be proposed, and if so, what side of the road. On stormwater management, we did have a few comments there relative to how they're handling stormwater. I think it can all be accommodated if they just shift a few things around and maneuver a few things there. There were a couple areas where the buffering to some of the lots, specifically lot 8, where the stormwater management system was within 10 feet of that property line, so we were looking for some increased buffering there, if we can separate those features from each other. The applicant, as they go through the construction drawing approval process, they'll need to just confirm water and sewer, that there's adequate capacity, and if there's any upgrades that need to be made to the system, they'll have to accommodate that. And then the second point of water main connection, for the cul-de-sac right now, it looks like it's kind of a dead end. We need to get a loop system through there, so again, we'll be looking for those details as part of the construction drawings. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does the township have a typical design for emergency vehicle access like this one?
I don't believe the township does. The road commission may have some standards for
Okay.
that, as far as the gating and everything.
Farco, so when you say gate, we're not talking about breakaway ballers, we're talking about a gate. Knox box gate, so it's not gonna function like a pedestrian connection. It's gonna say keep out. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
I did not give my site plan comments because I was confining it to just, you wanted me to do that also?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
That'll be helpful. Thank you, Jason.
Partly because I know that there's been some concerns raised by residents
Yeah.
about a couple of things that that are addressed in my review, and I think actually Jason.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Okay. So regarding the site plan, there are, pardon me? I'm hearing comments. Regarding the site plan, there are a couple of areas in this, in this portion of the site where there is some topography in relationship to the wetland. One of the things that both Jason and I took care in requiring verification from the applicant with a grading plan is that there would not be grading that encroached from any of these lot developments into the wetland buffer or wetland. I think we both noted the proximity of grading for the retention basin in that regard. I think that's a detail that can be worked out, as we move forward here. I want to acknowledge the fact that we did receive a very nice and detailed report from a neighboring resident that we did point out in our report that these lots are separated from open water by wetland. The wetland boundary and the wetland buffer are shown on the plans, and they are not encroaching in either by development of these lots along here. However, we would normally require restriction on encroachment in the permit conditions of these properties to the open water through the wetlands, that they would have to follow both township and Eagle wetland regulations. And so we would ask that you condition any recommendation on the restrictions being spelled out for a prevention of wetland encroachment for lots 9 through 19 in that particular, in your motion, if you are going to move forward with this tonight. The other thing that we also did point out, the need to dimension, provide the surface and the security for the emergency access, and there are actually, I believe, requirements in the fire code for how those are to be done. And we had a couple of questions. We have some comments about there are some areas where there is there are existing trees between what is this addition to phase 2 and the existing phase 2 that you already saw. And I didn't see any indication on the plans as to whether there would be an attempt to try to preserve those existing trees in those particular areas. We did have a small comment about the detention basin seed mix, which needs to be one which is appropriate for detention basins, using a native type of seed mix. We didn't see any indication on the plan where the lighting detail is provided, but there's no lighting locations shown on the plans that I can see. So those are some of the more specific comments regarding the site plan, Mr. Chairman.
Any site plan questions? Yes.
I just have one. What, are we talking about this whole area here that was purchased and added?
No.
Or just?
No, just that area,
Just that
yeah.
one piece?
Yeah. The area that, the area, the bulk of the area was already part of the project.
Brian, can you skip to the other part that shows the added property?
And-
That might make it clear for everybody.
And what about, we said it was landlocked, you said just that one?
Just the one
Can you
piece,
zoom in here, Brian?
Okay.
yeah.
Basically,
Yeah.
here's the added property right here.
Yeah, but
This
that's
is
not,
little rectangle section.
it's not landlocked, right? It
Well,
abuts the
this
lake.
one here was.
Well,
in a
It did
way-
not have, they did not have access to the internal road system because they never resolved the dispute.
Okay.
They were offered it, but they believed, and I'm not, we never took sides on this. We believed it was a private matter. But they believed that they had access to Roar Road via an easement, an old easement. An easement that predated this project. The actual terms of the easement were not as clear probably as they could have been. It's a moot point now because the property's been acquired.
Thank you. Any other questions? Could a representative of Clearview come up and give a brief summary of the project? If you so desire.
Good evening, Jerry Griffith, Clearview Homes. Thanks for having us. First of all, we were excited to solve the issue with the 5-acre piece to incorporate it. It solved a lot of issues for the project and for us going forward, quite honestly. Mr. Carlisle did a great job of summarizing why we're here, so I'm not going to go back through that. What I think I will do is maybe just address a couple of the comments and make sure you guys have a chance to ask questions of any of those things of us. The starting question was the emergency access, the additional path. We did the previous one in the phase that we're building in right now. We will match basically exactly what we did and what was approved there. So no problem whatsoever. Language, adding restriction language in for lots 9 through 19, we will do that in our condo documents, and no issue there. There was a question about location of the lamp posts. Those are actually in the landscape plan and not in the site plan. Okay. And it's tiny, it's tough to see, to be honest with you. Excuse me.
Tree preservation.
Yes, tree preservation. That actually, and again, it's a fine detail and it's in gray, but in our site plan, Jim Sharp did call out trees specifically that we are keeping and noted the trees that have to come out that are in a building envelope in the road or in a utility are X'd out. So it does call out those lots in particular, tough for me to read, but like 20 through lot 6 there. A lot of those lots are very, very deep, and our intent is to keep all those that are in the rear of the property that back up to the existing or the amended phase 2, if you will. Okay. So 100%. Our goal is always to keep whatever we can as far as existing trees. And one of the things about Morgan Lake in particular is it's been kept a very natural looking community, and that's our intent here. We'll take out just the minimum of what we have to tree wise. no problem on providing the seed mix for detention basin and anywhere else that will be seeded. Talked about the emergency access. I think, and I know a lot of, Jason, a lot of the things that you commented on, I think our intent was to handle in final engineering process to include a lot of the details, including working out some of the specific questions you had on storm water management, and a couple questions that were in there as well. So I don't see any issue with anything that was in your comments at all. I don't know if I missed anything that was commented on that you guys still have questions on.
Yeah, before, and we haven't opened up a public hearing yet, and I want to listen to the public, but, in my professional life, when we're dealing with residential homes that abut open space, be it a protected area for trees or wetlands or what have you, it's an attractive opportunity for the guy who owns 15 to be cutting the grass one day and maybe get a little aggressive with the weed whacker, and they weed whack, and then the next week they weed whack a little further, and before you know it, they've encroached 50 feet into the protected wetlands, and it's an enforcement nightmare. But what if, as part of the condition of approval, if we go in that direction, there be a fence without any gates all the way along the back of that property line that delineates the livable area with the protected wetland area. So it does a number of things. It stops that behavior. It doesn't allow people to easily walk through a protected area to the lake. It forces them to get on the sidewalk and walk over to whatever access there is that's been appropriately designed and approved by Eagle. What do you think of that idea?
I'm obviously hearing it for the first time. I mean, my initial reaction would be that I think there are also some negatives to it, quite honestly. And I think, especially for people who are purchasing one of those lots, that potentially would be something that would be a negative to them. Our intent is to definitely insert language that talks specifically to the restrictions of what someone can't do and needs to do if they want to do anything. And, one of the differences, if you compare this to, the built-out phase, it had common area back there. And some of the behavior you're talking about actually occurred and got Eagle involved. And one of the challenges is because it wasn't part of the lot, it was more difficult for anyone to enforce correctional activity on that behavior. So by having it be a specific lot, to the extent that someone did violate the restrictions, it makes it very, very easy then for Eagle to go in and see exactly who's doing it and take corrective action, or the township or whoever.
I can appreciate that response, and I think, thank you for responding to my question. But what I like the idea of a double whammy of Eagle can get involved, or the township can get involved if someone violates the condition of approval. So I need to think about this, but again, I deal with this on a daily basis where we've got someone who buys a lot, they're informed, they sign the document saying, I understand this is tree protection. They buy it, and then a month later, they cut trees now, and they call me. And I gotta go out and I gotta convince them that they gotta plant 5 trees to replace that massive tree they cut down, or I'm gonna take them to the magistrate. And now it becomes my problem, so, thank you. Any other questions? Thanks, Mr. Carlisle.
Thank you.
Mr. Sutton, in the manner in which you described it, you described actually more or less a fence post. I mean, we have in many communities seen natural areas demarcated with some kind of sign indicating that it's a protected conservation area.
Yeah, I don't know if that's enough. I think that helps. I think that helps, but I'm willing to first of all, we'll have the public hearing and listen to the neighbors, but that's a step in the right direction for sure, Mr. Carlisle, for sure. I'm gonna open up the public hearing now. So I read some rules so that we can have an effective and efficient public hearing. We'll stick to those rules. Everyone be respectful, address your comments to the board, And I'm sure, before I hit my gavel here, we did get some email correspondence, and we got a letter from the North Morgan Lake Association that's in our packet that was very thoughtfully and intelligently done. I appreciate that. I think there's some very reasonable conclusions in there. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna open up the public hearing, and because the representatives of the North Morgan Lake Association took so much time doing this, I would like the first speaker to be, if they wish to speak, either Rodney Bryce, Diane Moore, or Angela Radecki. If you so desire to speak tonight, I'm gonna give you first chance to speak. If you don't want to speak, you don't have to speak. Your last name isn't Bryce Moore or Radecki.
My apologies. My name is Julie Kroll. I live at Kroll. I live at 4122 Roar Road. And I am a member of the North Morgan Lake Association, and I'm here representing our group. Mr. Bryce is also here, as well as some of the other members of our North Morgan Lake Association. So if you would permit me to speak on behalf, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We've worked together many times before, just for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Savandant. That is correct. Our association put together this letter, and I will not read it verbatim, provided that you can enter it into the record for this. But I did want to point out a few items here that we went through, and as you said, we were very thoughtful in this. We understand that Clearview owns the property, and therefore they can use the property as homeowners on Morgan Lake. We just ask that it be done respectfully. And so the North Morgan Lake Association was established for the maintenance and the health of the lake. And Mr. Bryce can speak more to the history of the Lake Association. And the Lake Association members do pay for the maintenance of the lake. We have association that pays for bubblers, and then we also pay for weed control on the lake. There are 19 properties that are on the lake. One of which is currently, well, no, two of which are currently owned by Clearview Homes. All of the property adjacent to the lake in Clearview Homes is currently designated as open space. What is being proposed here, and I guess this is where our concern was, primarily in this area where they're going to parcel out 11 lots that will now have private access to Morgan Lake. Whereas the rest of the homeowners that are currently in Eagle Ridge will only have access through the open space, where each of these individual lots have the opportunity to have their own individual access to Morgan Lake. So a couple of things. We wanted to make sure that that consideration was for the site plan to show that those properties be considered as part of the open space, which was consistent with the rest of the PRD for this property. Having those individual lots then creates 11 additional access points that could be theoretically permitted by Eagle. Previous discussions with Eagle were from 2020, when a homeowner in phase 1 did have unpermitted access through the wetlands. They did infill. There was enforcement action done by Eagle, and they have to remediate that by September 2020, or they will face fines and prosecution. So what we don't want to have happen is this happen 11 more times at each of these private properties. We're already having an issue with the open space. If it's held ultimately with the HOA will have control of this property. Through discussions with Eagle, they said they would allow access through the least impactful point. So if you look at the overall PRD that was previously approved, you see that they have one little area where they were going to have, on the original PRD for the entire site, phase 1, there's a shared access on the north end where they could get a permit from Eagle to have, my understanding is like a boardwalk, a raised boardwalk, because there is no infill permitted in the wetlands, and then have a dock. Understand that's already in the PRD agreement. That is what it is. For phase two, the concern would be now you have a lot more impact to the wetlands in each of these individual lots. So instead of having one, you could have 11 plus the one that's shared for the rest of the PRD amendment for phase two. So we've gone from 1 to 13, essentially, additional access points through the wetlands. So for our concerns is, working with Eagle, and that was noted in Noack and Frost's letter, that they would need to have, Eagle would have to permit access through those wetlands. And so now Eagle would be put in a position that if they own that property, then they could get access if it was permitted by Eagle. Most likely it would have to be a raised boardwalk, no infill, et cetera. However, still creates a concern. And then the other thing we wanted to point out is that the PRD agreement should include any access to Morgan Lake be consistent with the existing North Morgan Lake Association bylaws for the maintenance and use of the lake. We're taking it on, the 17 homeowners that are paying right now, that should be shared amongst everyone that's on the lake and is using the lake and enjoying the lake. So we're not saying don't come to the lake, enjoy the lake. We've seen the neighbors come out and use the lake. Please just use it responsibly and equitably with the rest of the neighbors. That's, I think, the gist of what we were trying to go for. So thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone, please, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Rodney Bryce. I'm the president of the North Morgan Lake Owners Association, 4180 Roar Road. Couple concerns. Excellent job, Julie. Thank you. Statement was made there's going to be like 234 homes will now have this area, so they all will have access apparently. So obviously they're not all going to come at the same time, but they could. The earlier discussion was about dockage and shared boats from different docks and things like that. That's a very big concern for us. If there were 13 docks, for example, and it was not properly enforced, who knows how many boats could be on there. The overall surface area of the lake, for my historical remembrance, is about 40 acres. So not all of that is lake. A lot of that is wetland. So it's not a gigantic lake. It can't sustain a lot of use at the same time. And we're concerned that we don't want too many people at the same time. We don't want it to be messy. We've done a very good job for many, many years taking care of this lake. It's just for history point. I originally moved to the area in 1968 and had access to the lake. So I've seen the Block Brothers. I've seen everything that could happen there. The lake's in pretty good shape right now. We want to keep it that way. So it's just a matter of, we understand that they will have access. It's a legal thing. They own it. They can come to it. It's all right. Just want to control the access, control who can get on it, what kind of permits, where they go. My concern is a little additional to everyone else's. I'm the only one who actually has land that touches their land. So I'm the northeast corner. There's like a little wedge shape at the top there. A statement was made about possible fencing or whatnot. I think that'd be a great idea. As a kid, 1968, we got to the lake. It didn't matter. As little kids, we could get to the water. We always did. We had legal access, but we didn't care. We went wherever we wanted. Back then, that's how kids were. Kids, I do not believe, has changed. They're going to get to the water. We want to keep people safe. We want to keep them not going across things they don't want to go. It's just a concern for overall public safety. That's pretty much what I have.
Thank you. We'll stick with people in the room for now. There's people that have been patiently hanging on online. But before I open it up to people remotely, is there anyone else in person? Go ahead, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Dysars. My address is 5396 Aberdeen Court, and I'm the president of the Eagle Ridge Homeowners Association, or as you guys probably know, phase one of this whole project. I wanted to start by referring you back to your meeting last May of 2021. Clearview came to you and was making a proposal to basically, and informed you that this entire development was split up, that the property was sold. So you had Gus Servos, who owned the property of Phase 1, and now Clearview is the owner of Phases 2, 3, and 4. There is an easement that's been granted, again, there's only one access, as Commissioner Tully was mentioning earlier, that goes through only Phase 1. And that's not just residents, that's construction. Truck after truck after truck, and I know that the township's aware of this, because I'm pretty sure Brian gets an email every week with a doorbell video showing the trucks destroying their property. So where I'm going with this is, at that meeting, this planning commission said, whoa, let's halt here. This, first off, is a violation of the PRD to have two different owners at the same time. I read the minutes and read the discussion. And you guys argued it for quite a while, and you approved a whole new homeowners association under the condition that, in fact, Mr. Carlisle even recommended, I'm gonna quote him here, basically that nothing else should be done until the Clearview and the homeowners association reach an agreement with how to deal with all common elements. There was nothing in place, there still isn't today. The only thing in place is a private agreement that Mr. Servos, on behalf of his LLC, entered into with Clearview, granting them the easements. We have no now there has been one meeting in this room, one meeting last October, between myself, Brian, Dan Kelly, Eric and Jerry, and Gus. That's it. One meeting. And we can agree, I think, that yes, a master association is how this development has to function. We all agree that down the road, what we want is to have one community, when Clearview's long and gone, done developing, one community that functions without phase and partisan, or not phase politics, if you will, of who's gonna have say over what common element, because frankly, the declaration of easements, we all enjoy, we enjoy everyone's land. We get to go on all these phases, they get to come on ours. And so the master really is going to dictate everything here. And we haven't reached an agreement. And the reason being, I bet we've only started. And there was a proposal made by Clearview, and we said, hold on here, they wanted to do a declaration of a community, and we said, we sent this to our attorney as well, who responded, and simply said, hold on here, we can't do this. We need to talk more in detail about what this master looks like, have a set of bylaws in place, because it's going to be very complex with all of these phases that deal with all of the common elements. And frankly, because we're dealing with one access with construction going over these roads for probably the next, 10 years, you saw there's only 50 homes in Phase 1, an additional roughly 47 in Phase 2. They're here to add another 24, and then you got a whole nother 200 some houses that are all gonna use those roads with construction trucks, and despite what Eric from Clearview says, they're going to do damage to our roads. And we cannot be in a position where 10 years down the line, we're forking the bill. You guys had that concern, I read the minutes. You said, so go put a master in place, have an agreement. It's not there. Nothing else on this project should even be considered. And I took Brian's word when he said nothing else was gonna happen on this project until we reached this agreement, and I was shocked to see this out of the agenda. So you're gonna hear from the neighbors tonight, because I can tell you right now, there's probably not one resident in Phase 1 who's been happy with this development. And frankly, the township shouldn't be either. There have been mishandling after mishandling after mishandling of this. Your current PRD and development plan for Phase 1 isn't even complete. There are 122 missing street trees that Clearview was supposed to put in. 122, we don't have a single tree. Mr. Servos put in maybe like 10 trees and a couple common elements, and then let the natural elements, as someone mentioned earlier, take over all of it, and it looks like a very natural area, not a neighborhood. So we've had issue, the silt fencing for Phase 1 is still in place. Our sewer bags, where there hasn't been construction in 3 years, are still in our bags in Phase 1. And we have been pushing for a year now, since we took over the HOA took over in October. We've been asking and pushing for all of this stuff to get done, for the Phase 1 development plan to be put in place, and nothing has been done. Nothing. Our sidewalks aren't even in compliance for phase one, and they're here asking you for 24 more homes in phase two. This has to be the stop. You guys have to be the stop here to say, nope, we are not touching this development until these issues are resolved. That includes the street trees, that includes the roads, which have about roughly $70,000 in current repairs that are needed. That includes the sidewalks, that includes lake access. We're talking about lake access. We literally have no lake access right now. We're supposed to, in phase one, per the development plan. Now, that's a Gus Servos issue, not so much a Clearview. But still, my point is that you guys are dealing with this development and expanding it when the township can't even get this first phase right. And again, that you were advised as to it. Dan Kelly is now advised to it from our attorney. These are ongoing negotiations, and this is on the agenda. Let me ask you this, that new parcel of land that was just purchased by Clearview, guess what's not defined as a parcel of land in the declaration of easements? Granting Clearview access to build on that new lot, there was no easements granted per that contract. You know why? Because they didn't own it. So I would like maybe the township attorney, if they're here, and Ms. Ellis, I believe, has the township addressed that? Because I tell you what now, no one's addressed our attorneys to address, we are the successor of that contract. We didn't grant easement to develop on that piece of parcel. They couldn't have granted the easement because they didn't own it. They just acquired it. Legal issue you guys might want to look into before you say yes and send this to the board. You're going to hear a lot from other neighbors right after me. Again, we are hopeful in our conversations, but in our response with regard to the Master Association, in our response to Clearview's proposal, which was not the establishment of an actual LLC, of an HOA, it was basically just the concept that both parties would agree to. They responded and said, well, because we wanted basically right now set in place a master association that is an incorporated LLC. It's in place, and why should we as an HOA that had nothing to do with this and all the residents pay the fees to set up that corporation? That shouldn't be us. We did not create this mess. The township and Clearview and Gus Servos did. And so we said, go, let's get this in place. Let's have it in place. You pay to have this incorporated. And frankly, with the issue with the roads that in the conversations that are ongoing, we have to have some type of LLC in which money could potentially be put in escrow. Because, oh, by the way, the township also screwed that up on phase one. No, as you are required by ordinance, didn't take out a bond. So all the damage to the roads here, we're stuck with no support from the township. Nothing. It's not there the way it is in every other typical development. And I said that to Dan. I said multiple times, this is not a typical development, so you guys need to have our back, so we're not splitting this bill for Clearview's profit. And their response, Clearview's response to this concept of getting the master association put in place right now, this is in a letter from their attorney. Clearview will cease pursuing the establishment of a combined community. Perhaps the issue can be resurrected in the future by the homeowners. Not what this commission required. This needs to be done now, and it needs to be done before you approve. And I understand that the logistics of this phase two are, you know, they don't impact the overall development. But what we're asking is you shouldn't even be considering and allowing Clearview to pass go when they aren't playing by the rules. They aren't doing what they need to be doing, and there is damage that's been sitting there for 3 or 4 years. Don't give them one more ounce of go. Say no. Go fix it, then come back to us. And in a weird way, I know it's only 24 more houses. That's 24 more houses that basically tonight, if you move this on, with more construction trucks that we can't do anything about, and no agreement in place, we can't deal with it right now. You can, so we're asking you to stop it now. Get them, force them to come to the table and deal with us to fix these issues. Because we've tried and we've tried. That was May, that was over a year ago. And nothing's happened. So I'm gonna leave the rest of the comments and you'll see what I'm talking about when the neighbors aren't necessarily happy with the development that you guys have set in place here. So we really hope and we encourage you table this issue, because there's legal issues at stake here. There's a lot of moving parts that you should not be continuing to allow them to permission to build until these issues are addressed. So thank you for your time.
If the planning commission will allow, I'm prepared to respond to some of those concerns.
Um,
Unless you wanna wait to hear from me.
I wanna wait,
Public comment?
there could be some other comments that you could address. So just before anyone who wants to speak is gonna speak, but just sheerly for my curiosity, show of hands, how many people are from the same phase one as the gentleman who just spoke? Leave your hands up for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let the record show 10 people raise their hands in person. Next person, please, who'd like to speak.
Don't
forget those of us online. Can you please look at online as well?
No good deed goes unpunished. I'm not gonna do that. It's gonna be too cumbersome. I'm gonna recognize that there's a lot of people, and I'm sure 6 people. Mr. Ottman informs you there's 6 people who are members of 7 people of the association. Shame on me.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Rodney Blight, 5417 Aberdeen Court. Appreciate your time. I'm going to be brief because there's a lot of people that have comments, and I think they're all going to mimic what Kyle did such a great job presenting here. But again, I would definitely support and request that you not permit any move forward. I've been in construction land development for 30 years myself, both residential and commercial. And just hearing the presentation for this alone, aside from everything else that everyone else is saying, there were at least a half a dozen items that were, well, we're not sure about this, but yeah, we'll take care of that. And that's the same type of thing that led to all the problems we've got in phase one right now. If you were to prove that aside from our complaints, it would just lead to the same pattern of behavior that caused all the problems we've got in phase one right now. Access to the fire, the wetlands, they've got a lot of things to answer just on that side of it, aside from what they need to correct in phase one. Phase one, our common areas are full of construction debris. There's block, there's brick, there's silt fence still up that's grown over. There's areas that should have been seeded, and you look at how pretty the plan looks up there. All the areas that are common areas, it's just weed grass this tall. It's never been maintained, never been seeded. It was never even cleared where it could be seeded or mowed, and our maintenance companies now can't even mow it because there's debris, garbage, everything grown into the ground where it was never taken care of. As Kyle had said, there's still silt sacks and silt fence. I live in one of the courts in the back. There's no construction there for almost 4 years. And there's still silt sacks in every single storm sewer. And it floods when it rains. No one will maintain them. No one will take care of them. No one will remove them. Aside from that, I just, I would ask that you take the responsibility now and make up for the negligence that the township has had in the past on phase one. In the 30 years of development, I've had to post bonds. I've had to answer for inspections upon completion of a development. And for this to have ever been passed and approved and had a bond revoked and given back to Clearview with stormwater issues still present, with silt sacks, silt fence still in place, with trees not installed. Every project I've ever had to do, there was an inspector that came out. They counted trees, they counted plants, they looked at the landscape plan, said, you've got 25 hostas? Yes. You have 35, birch trees? Yes. Complete negligence on the township's behalf, because that was never done. Because if it was, this never would have gotten to this point. I think other than that, that's just about it. We just ask that you don't continue with these mistakes, allowing this to happen. And this is going to roll over into phase 2 and phase 3 and 4. And the other homeowners, I'm sure, will speak to the construction side of it and the construction traffic, what they're doing to our homes and our subdivision. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, please.
My name is Cindy Makovich. I live at 4380 Roar Road, and I'm not even close to that question there. My question is, I'm one of 4 access owners to the lake, and I don't see where that's been addressed. I don't want to lose my already complicated way to get to the lake. And the other question I have is the gate they're talking about, the north gate. They keep calling it an emergency gate. I want to know what it's going to look like. If it's going to look like cows are kept behind it, that's going to greatly impact my street and my aesthetics on my road. So that I haven't heard addressed either. If it's going to look like the gate that's the south one, it's pretty, I mean, it's nice if you have cows, but we don't have cows. And I just wondered if it's going to look like anything attractive.
I want to make sure I understand your first concern about access. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I have legal access. It's in my deed. I live on the, well, I don't see it here, but the curve where Roar Road goes east and west. I'm one of 4 houses there on that north side of Roar Road, and we all have deeded access to it. And it's always been kind of a fuzzy way to get in. And like Rodney said, you just get in how you get in. Well, it sounds like I'm not going to be able to get in if you guys are building houses, and it's not going to be addressed, and then it's going to get just kind of lost.
We're not building any houses.
No, okay, I'm sorry, the construction. So that
Yeah.
was, those are 2 of my concerns that I haven't heard addressed, and I don't see it on the map, and I just want to make sure that it's not something that gets forgotten about until it's too late.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker, please. Good evening.
Adam Schultz, 5452 Morgan Lake Drive. Thank you for listening to us. I feel like I haven't had a voice in all of this, and so I feel like finally I have some voice. My wife and I had a house built in Waterford, and the experience with the builder is very different than what we're having there. When the builder was done there, they cleaned up, they left, we had the subdivision. Here it's very different. We were promised tree-lined streets and access to the lake and complete sidewalks, and you know, we don't have any of that. It's not even safe for us to go for walks with my grandchild. The sidewalks aren't complete. We have barrels because the road washes over and washes the sidewalk away, so we don't have access to that sidewalk. The streets are broken up, and there's construction debris and garbage left all over, chunks of concrete, wood, nails, everything just, they up and left. Didn't take care of any of it. And, you know, I wonder what they're gonna do in the next phases. Is it gonna be just as bad? They've left us like that. So, you know, I'm asking not to continue anything for them until this is resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hey, good evening, y'all. My name is Rodolfo Gonzalez. I prefer to go by Rudy. I'm a resident of Phase 1. I live at 5411 Morgan Lake Drive. I apologize, my wife couldn't be here with me tonight. She had to stay home and watch the kids. But I'd like to say that I'm super excited to be part of Independence Township. I spent the last 23 years or so on active duty in the Marine Corps, so I'm finally glad to be someplace where I can settle down and put in roots. And I just would like to express my opinion and concerns with how things have been handled by Clearview and the prior developer. And I think that the big red stop should be put on this, because I think that they've exhibited selfish and unethical behavior. And I'm gonna look down at my notes, if you don't mind, with regards to their unfulfilled promises with the trees, their lack of disclosure of the site plan. Whenever I moved in, I wasn't aware that there's supposed to be 3 trees, you know, on my frontage of my house. You know, had I known that, whenever I invested the money that I had saved for many years to get the thing landscaped, I would have paid for that. Had I known that, I would have, you know, planned my irrigation system accordingly to do that. And now that it hasn't been done, is it gonna come out of my pocket? Maybe. Should it? Maybe. Should they pay for it? Maybe. But it's still an impactful and an unplanned expense. And with the way things are today, with, you know, the cost of things going up, it's gonna add up. And it's gonna add up for all of the residents of the neighborhood. Also, I'd like to say that with regards to the silt bags and the silt fences. Now, I'm no engineer or construction manager or attorney or anything like that, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. And the way I understand it is bonds are put up when construction is done to have, for wastewater, for silt bags and stuff like that. But yet I have a silt bag on the corner of my lot as you go into the thing, just like everybody else does, that's full of dirt and causes flooding. And if you look at the storm drain, you can see where the storm drain is sunk into the concrete 2 to 3 inches and is cracking out. For what I can only presume is the unplanned load from that dirt inside there. And like my other neighbor mentioned, the unsafe sidewalks. And earlier in the meeting tonight, we talked about the walkability of developments. Well, what's the walkability of my development when I can't even take my grade schoolers on a bicycle ride and allow them to ride on the sidewalks because we have construction traffic zooming up and down, with 18-wheelers and the like. I can't even take them for a bicycle ride on the sidewalk because the silt bags are overflown and water from the, I don't know, whatever, the wetlands on the other side are washing up on the road because it won't drain out and has caused the ground to erode underneath the sidewalk where we can't even walk on the sidewalk without fear of falling down and suffering injury. So I think that just goes to show the callousness and I don't know, the contempt that they have for the residents and the people that they're selling to. Additionally to that, I'd like to talk about the damage that they're doing to the roads by the construction vehicles. Having my ring cameras on the front, all around my house and watching vehicles day after day drive across the island and tear up the curbing and watching them cut across my neighbors' yards and leave tracks in there and tear up their stuff, and this is supposed to go on for the next 10 years. And I took time, I saw somebody, I walked, I drove back and I asked the truck driver, I said, hey, when you come through here, could you please, take it easy and try not to damage this? And he said, you know what, don't worry about it. We know it's gonna get messed up. Eric knows it's gonna get messed up, Eric from Clearview. He's gonna cover all that stuff. You don't need to worry about that. But clearly, what's been said is there's no agreement for the maintenance of the roads, right? And if $70,000 of damage is done already, what's it gonna cost down the line for us to fix? Who's gonna be responsible to pay for it? If it's a private road, it's not gonna come out of the township's pocket, it's gonna come out of our pockets. And it's unfair for us to have to suffer that entire expense when it's clearly a lack of planning, and oversight. Another thing I like to illustrate or share is when I moved in, I've never lived in an HOA. When I moved in, I read the HOA agreement because I was concerned with how it's gonna be turned over. And as I read the agreement, it talks about after X amount of years, there's gonna be a resident representative on the HOA board. And then after X amount of homes are occupied, there's gonna be X amount. And after this, it's gonna turn over. Well, what they did is they essentially sold all of phase one, and however that worked out with the owner and the developer or whatever, they sold phase one, took a step back and said, oh, hey, guess what? For the last, however long this has been going on, we didn't give you any access to the HOA because you hadn't occupied the 250 homes or whatever the planned homes is for the development. Well, guess what? Now you're your own HOA, and they were allowed to form a separate HOA or propose second HOA and leave us hanging with everything that was unresolved. So we had no say in the future planning. And lastly, if they're gonna add more houses, it is what it is. But there's only a single access road, and it's I don't know. I'm just overall just disappointed, and I hope that y'all will do the right thing and take care of us and represent us and make the best possible choice that you can with the information that we all have to share and that y'all have. So thank you for the opportunity tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've got a great outdoor voice, by the way.
Well, I only got two volumes loud enough, so thank you.
Matt Gray at 5460 Morgan Lake Drive. I'll keep it simple. All the concerns I share exactly with our members over there, but I think more than anything, as Kyle mentioned, and this has been a long, complex project from prior to Clearview and Gus all the way till now, and all we're asking you to do is to stop any future building, including this new, until our situation's resolved. We're not telling you how to resolve it, but we're talking that we want, legal actions have already started. We're just asking that we get that resolved before you allow future development. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Melissa
Melissa Wells, 5448 Morgan Lake Drive. Obviously, our concerns are the same as everyone else's, but I just wanted, again, to ask that you do not let them move forward. My husband and I have worked our entire lives to build a home for our kids. We can't walk down the sidewalks. One of the sidewalks is completely sunken in. You have to go into the road, and with all the construction, it's so dangerous. I've yelled at construction drivers. They don't care. I want to live here with my family. We have a great neighborhood, and I feel like Clearview's totally taking advantage of us. And I just want to ask that you do not move forward with them getting new lots or just continuing without taking care of the issues that we've addressed with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Pat Wickets, 5423 Morgan Lake Drive. I think Brian will probably recognize my name from the numerous emails that I've sent him with photos of the damage from the construction trucks. I have the unfortunate pleasure of sitting in my office, faces Morgan Lake, and we live by that first island when you turn right into the subdivision. And the number of times that trucks will run over that island and destroy our streets, or avoid the island and come into my yard and destroy my yard, it's crazy. It's every day. We've had trucks running over the curbs, breaking axles, literally ghost trucks driving down the street because the axle was broken on it. I have the video. I want to send it to each and every one of you after this call. I've seen mothers Dodge trucks pushing their strollers across the street that I also have video footage of because of trucks drive erratically. Cars have been hit. Someone's going to get hurt. My point is, you cannot let them expand, bring more construction trucks until our issues are resolved. We want the same protections that you guys gave our neighbors on Roar Road when that second entrance was denied. We just want you guys to protect us because you guys are our last hope. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who's in the audience this evening? Good evening.
Michael Taylor, 5415 Morgan Lake. Like a lot of my neighbors, right? I have a young daughter. She's 2 years old. We look at the site plans for phase 2. They're very similar to what ours are. The sidewalks are supposed to be ADA compliant. We don't have that in phase 1, right? We actually, like everybody has mentioned, there's a coned off area where there's probably a 4 to 6 foot drop next to the sidewalk that hasn't been fixed, right? So again, the damage the construction trucks are doing, and I understand the folks from Roar Road, I wouldn't want that either, right? And we have one entrance to our sub off of Maybe, and you're gonna put 234 houses through that, right? The concern of that many people on the lake, I get, right? But at business, start a business, and start a school, that's gonna have a huge traffic jam inside of Morgan Lake, and nobody's gonna be able to get out to Maybe. That's gonna be a huge disaster. And I understand that you think that we can have 234 houses off of one entrance and exit off the subdivision. That's just not practical, okay? So, and like everybody has already said, just the speeding construction trucks, which I know are not necessarily Clearview's or their contractor's fault, right? But all those trucks are coming through our neighborhood and they're causing damage, and somebody's gonna get killed or injured very soon. We've already seen almost, what ifs happen, and before we keep adding to this subdivision, we need to figure out these things, right? And we've submitted a list of grievances, and none of those have been acted upon. We had to go to the point of getting representation so that we could take this to Clearview, and, like Kyle said, still nothing has been resolved. It's been almost a year since we've taken over as the HOA for our portion of the subdivision, and nothing has moved forward. So I think we just have to put the brakes on any future requests that Clearview's gonna have, because unlike the folks on Roar Road, when the discussion about the emergency only exit that was gonna be put on Roar Road, we weren't informed of that. We weren't barely informed of this meeting occurring with additional properties being added to this Clearview plan. If the homeowners who already are in this sub aren't being informed that there's gonna be a meeting at the township, there's a problem there, right? We should have the same right to know that the folks on Roar Road have, right? That we should have been in the original discussion, and we could have had that discussion before final decisions were made, and at least given our input onto that one as well. So that's my last point. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Brad Palmer, 5368 Madison Court. Again, I'll echo what they've said. I think the biggest contention that I've heard, I'm a member of the board, of the three-person board with Kyle and Matt. And obviously, and it's not completely Clearview's fault. Gus has his responsibility in it too, because as a developer of Phase 1, he was supposed to put out a call for representation. We had zero representation. So when the entrance on Roar Road was declined because it's not Independence Township, it's Orion Township, nobody was there to say, hey, hold on a second. So I think that's the biggest problem with this whole thing, is this lack of representation. The HOA was not handed over when it was supposed to be. So there's all this stuff going on in the background, without, like, as Mike said, with nobody knowing about it, almost like done in secret. So I would echo what my fellow neighbors have said, and at least put the brakes on this thing until some of this stuff gets resolved.
Thank you. Yes.
Could I just clarify one thing for the benefit of the residents? That decision didn't happen just recently. That was part of the original approval of the PRD that happened back in the 1990s. So it would have been impossible for you to be notified because none of you didn't live there. But that was part of the original PRD agreement back in the 1990s. Unfortunately,
But the PRD has changed since that has been.
Hold on. We're not gonna do
I'm
this.
just telling you that
No, we're not.
restriction on access to Roaring Road occurred with the original approval with Mr., the original developer. You know, we've had 5 developers since then, so I just want you to be aware of that. So nothing's changed about that access easement issue that we would have had anything to inform you about, so.
Good evening.
How's it going? My name's Jason Ortiz, 5456 Morgan Lake Drive. I think I just want to come up here and ask one question to the commission here. After everything you've heard from my fellow residents, if this was happening in your neighborhood, would you let the building continue? I think that's really what you guys need to think about when you go home tonight. Clearview, they built us a beautiful home, okay? I will give them credit. A lot of windows out of square, but, you know, it's a nice house. And, you know, we just want to see a nice subdivision. I mean, that's really it. Just as nice as the subdivisions you on the commission probably live in as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who's attending in person wish to speak? Going once, going twice? Okay, Brian, let's start inviting people remotely. Who wants to go first? Rachel? Rachel, you're up.
Just unmute yourself.
Rachel, if you're there, you're on mute.
Yeah, they're all on mute.
Okay, we'll move on from Rachel. We'll come back to you, Rachel. Brian, who can I ask next? Are they all for phase 1? Well,
They are. I don't know.
oh,
JK.
JK.
Hi there. Yeah, name is James Kaminsky. I live at 5472 Morgan Lake Drive. I'm near the end of phase 1, where it meets the phase 2 difference of like the pavement of the last island. unlike a lot of the phase one residents who have maybe been in their homes for 2, 3, 4 years, I just moved in like the past 12 months. So I moved in September of last year. And so I don't know a lot of the history about everything that's been going on with all of the different issues that have been arisen. But as a homeowner that bought their first house in this neighborhood and just seeing things with like a clean sheet of paper, it's all the concerns that have been raised seem to be visible and apparent in their manner. And it seems to be reasonable to believe that a lot of these things should be taken care of. And that anyone who would not try to accommodate the requests being made, it just seems like pushing off to someone else in a position where, you know, it's not my problem, it's not my concern, you deal with it. Which, when you buy this house and you're sold the house, it's kind of told like, oh, those things are going to get taken care of, like you don't have to worry about that. So is some of that sales? Maybe, but you know, when you buy into the neighborhood, you don't expect some of these things to kind of continue. And you know, I just try to empathize with a lot of my other fellow homeowners who maybe been in their houses a lot longer than I have, because they've been dealing with these issues for years. I've only been dealing with it for a few months. So it's just one of those things where, I just want to defer to what our president has kind of echoed in his opening statement that he's made as part of our group, and just hope you guys take that into consideration when it comes to a lot of the issues that we're concerning. Thanks.
Thank you. Rachel, are you there?
She had submitted a letter to.
Yeah, okay.
Grant.
Grant, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Grant Belo, 5419 Morgan Lake Drive. I apologize if I cough or clear my throat a lot. I got COVID positive a couple days ago, unfortunately. The main reason, or at least to me, the main reason why we're looking to have you guys put them on hold is we really have no leverage against Clearview Homes. Gus gave away the easement that allowed the construction trucks to drive through to the additional phases, and that could have been leverage for us to really get Clearview to actually do what they're supposed to do. But right now, stopping them, hurting them financially, by not allowing them to build future homes is really the only move we have. So we're really relying on you guys, hoping you make the right decision. And I think everybody else has made everything else pretty clear. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe three times the charm. Rachel, are you there?
There's somebody else.
Who's one of the five whose names we can't see? Brian, do you know who that is?
There's 4
Is
of
that
them.
Jen?
On the far right?
On the far right?
Justin.
Justin.
Hi, this is Justin Davis and Mickey Green, or Michaela Green. We're located at 5467 Morgan Lake. So I just don't want to be repetitive, so everything that's already been said, I agree with as well. However, we do also live behind where the trail is, the wood chip trail that was advertised by Terry from Clearview herself. It hasn't been maintained, and then it got switched over to us as HOA, and they continue to still not maintain it. They should have maintained it before giving it to HOA as the responsibility. When I moved in, I had a ton of construction matter on my property. When I addressed this with Clearview, they were negligent on the matter. And when I continued to address it, they said it was up to HOA. So pretty much case in point, Clearview doesn't take responsibility and they put everything to HOA. And I think it's just really important that the township takes recognition that it's your time to actually let us have a voice as the residents, because we've been completely treated unfairly this entire time. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a Tim Gale up there.
Tim?
Underneath him is Grant. Below, Grant below.
No, there's another Grant. So the other Grant.
There's a Jen.
Jen?
Hi, thank you. This is Jen Rostovsky. I live at 5443 Morgan Lake Drive. And I agree with what everyone else has said, and wanted to add that we'd like to ask that you do reconsider looking at the emergency exits as entrances and exits for residents as well. Realizing that that was voted on a very long time ago, but what we've noticed, we're in phase one. From the time we moved in, they did add at least one home, potentially up to 3 or 4 new homes to our phase that wasn't originally on the plot or on the plan. We're now here because Clearview is asking to add more homes to phase 2, and there are 2 more phases in which the number of homes just continues to grow. We had been told by Terry that the back would maybe get built in 10 to 15 years, if ever, and so we had bought this home under the assumption that this would be a small 50-house community. We now live on a street that is very, very busy with huge trucks. I have also sent pictures to Brian just showing the sheer size of the things that are being brought through here. While our kids, I have a 7-year-old who wants to play, and you know, we have to be really careful that he stays on the sidewalk, but then in certain areas, as some people have said, you can't be on the sidewalk, it is unsafe because the ground has washed out. And so I'm asking that you reconsider those exits in the back to be used for construction when construction is going on for the next several years, to keep that off of community that's completed and where we are actively living. And then secondarily, for all those homes, you know, if you imagine 2 cars per home and there's 200 to 300 homes back there, that's a significant number of cars coming in and out of one entrance and exit. So wanted to add that too as consideration as you look into this matter with Clearview. Thank you.
Down to Rachel.
Thank you. Back to you, Rachel. Last chance. Yeah, I did receive an email from Rachel. It was in our packet, and so we're gonna. Is there anyone who doesn't have their digital hand raised out in remote land who wishes to speak? Please speak up now.
Hi, this is Joe Robinson from 5376 Madison Court.
Welcome.
Thank you for the time and hearing our concerns. Thanks to Kyle for articulating very clearly the issues that we're dealing with. I was the very first house in the sub. I have a specific concern in front of my house. It's in one of the cul-de-sacs. There's a spot where the concrete has settled 4 inches from the two different pieces of concrete. It's a nasty bump in the road. The kids trip over it. Plus, it creates a pool. And in the winter, when it gets wet, water holds there and it freezes and creates a little ice pad. It's a pretty dangerous situation. I've addressed it with Gus Zervos and Clearview both, and haven't gotten anywhere with it. But it's something we really need to get fixed, as well as the rest of the roads in the place, as Kyle mentioned. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else who's attending remotely, please speak up.
Yes, hello, this is Kara Mortal at 5475 Morgan Lake Drive.
Welcome.
Thank you. We have a really big concern on this road because every time it rains, there's 7 to 8 inches of water in the back of this neighborhood. My 4-year-old can't even play on the streets because the gentlemen who drive down these roads, excuse me, I'm sorry, very upset. They race down here in their Mack trucks, and you can't even have the families out here. And Clearview totally gave us the wrong idea of building. When we built this house, they said there will not be construction for another 10 years. Don't worry. You know, we don't even know if it's going to happen. I've lived here now 13 months, and it's really disappointing that the township would say, no, we're not going to reconsider opening up that entrance when we have all these children. I mean, there's probably 40 to 50 kids in this neighborhood, and they can't even play out here. It's really sad. And, you know, people, I know with everything going on and buying houses and the interest rates and all this, it's going to be harder to sell. And I know that they're going to have a tough time and whatever the case may be, but we have to get this neighborhood fixed before they can add another 183 homes. It's not fair to us. I know the people that lived here for 4 years now. This is just disappointing. Our roads are falling apart. No one's taking care of anything, and we just need some help, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Brazelton.
Hi, I'm Cameron Brazelton. I live at 5432 Morgan Lake Drive. I just wanted to echo everybody else's thoughts here in the neighborhood. We share the same concerns. I have a 4 and a 2-year-old. Been great getting to know the neighbors. We have a absolute ton of young children in this neighborhood, and you walk outside on a nice day, and it's just the sidewalks, you know, where there are some, are just, you know, filled with kids, and it's, you know, this is going to be a problem for a long time. This isn't something where, you know, everyone's growing up and moving out of the house. I mean, we have a lot of young families here that, you know, we just want to have a safe place, you know, to, you know, raise our families. So, would really like for you to reconsider, you know, moving on with the next phase. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else attending remotely, please, please announce yourself. Rachel, this is it. Someone attending remotely, go knock on Rachel's door and make sure she's awake. So I'm gonna, this is last call for remote participation. You had your hand up. Would you like to go to the microphone? Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Evelyn Carpenter. I live at 4106 Roar Road. And I want to discuss these access points that they want to open up. The northern one is at an S-curve. So there's no sidewalks. There are also children in this neighborhood. So you're just going to throw your issue onto us when right now those are fire exits only. So sorry if I'm a little nervous, but I just think that it needs to be reviewed, that I understand their concern, but we don't have sidewalks. It's an S-curve. I walk the streets every day, and I have to pull off all the time when I'm walking because of traffic going in and out, and they don't follow the speeds. So I just, and I know those are Orion exits, I believe, and they have to be part of this plan. So I just think that, you know, I can understand your concerns, but it's our concern as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience who hasn't spoken yet, wishes to speak? Last chance. Rachel, you awake?
She's gone now.
I'm going to close the public hearing.
8:49.
At 8:49. There's a lot to unpack here. Ms. Ellis, do you want to respond to some of the comments?
Yeah, so I just want to give you guys an update on the status of negotiations on our master maintenance agreement. Clearview Homes has circulated a proposed master maintenance agreement, very basic, just a starting point of negotiations. We did not hear from the Phase 1 HOA for a few weeks. They then got their legal counsel involved, who has been very vocal. She sent us a letter setting forth their positions, which we fully understand. We went back, met with Clearview Homes' attorney. So we've been kind of going back and forth between the parties. We feel that we're to a point now where we're ready to get all of the parties in a room, including with the township supervisor, to meet. I spoke actually with the Phase 1 HOA's attorney today, and she's in agreement. So there is progress being made. So I I guess what I would say is we're not as far apart as we were a few months ago, okay? We've been having these conversations, and there is an agreement in circulation, and I just want to clarify the township's role is to act as a facilitator to get these two parties to come to the table. So, I mean, I just wanted to clarify that point, that I have been in contact with their legal counsel, we have been meeting, there've been letters flying back and forth. I'd say the biggest bone of contention has been what Gus Servos is responsible for versus what they want Clearview to be responsible for. We've been able to suss out some of those issues, and so now we're to a point where we can really talk about entering into this agreement to address the road and other common elements. So I just wanted to say that's where we're at, and I would expect us to have a meeting in the next 2 weeks, as I told both Clearview's legal counsel and the Phase 1 HOA's counsel today. So I don't know if you have any other questions for me on that, but.
Any questions?
What does that mean in terms of a timetable?
Well, it depends on how well this meeting goes. We'll have a better idea once we get all the parties. I think the Phase 1 HOA president stated that the last time the parties were in the room was maybe a year ago. So this will be the first time that we're sitting down and we have a clear idea of what everyone's positions are, and we actually have an agreement to work from. So all I can tell you is I can give you an update at the next planning commission meeting, and I'll have a better idea after we all have this sit-down meeting. But we did condition approval of the master plan on Clearview coming to the table, right? And they have. They've provided this master agreement. We haven't come to a decision yet, but it's my understanding that both parties are willing, and that's what they've represented to us, and they've been in contact with us and trying to work together.
So there's no way to put out a timetable and...
Well, I would love to tell you 2 weeks, but I can't tell you these people are gonna come meet and just say, we love it, let's enter into this agreement. What I can tell you is as on the underlying issue, which for the township is the road, right? We want the road to be taken care of. They're both have represented to us that they agree there should be a master HOA in place to share that responsibility.
So, can I jump in?
Sure,
You're yielding me the floor?
I am.
So, from the last time we talked about this, this project, a year and a half ago, plus or minus, the progress that's been made in negotiations is what you've verbalized.
Correct.
It took that long.
It took that long.
That's unacceptable, in my mind.
Well, it took a long time to get a master agreement circulated, and then once I did, my understanding is that there were significant communication gaps between Clearview and the Phase 1 HOA, which have since very much been resolved since they retained counsel.
So the communication's flowing now.
The communication's flowing. I've had a conversation with both attorneys every week in the past 4 weeks.
And you're involved as a facilitator?
Correct.
You and your firm?
Yes, and that's the township's role as well. We're trying to facilitate these private parties to enter into agreement to address these road issues.
I came to the meeting tonight expecting to focus on wetlands and lake access. And that's still important, but it's, a whole lot more than that. I'm disappointed that we're still here at this juncture. And I'm happy to hear that there's communication, but what a mess. Just what a mess. Technical term, mess.
Well, if one party chooses to remain litigious, it could go on forever.
But I'm not sure what our role is, but can we do something like request regular updates?
Absolutely, you
on
can.
a certain timetable?
That would be appropriate.
Is that something we can do?
I will say from our office, from our perspective, we're a little wary to advise the planning commission to deny Clearview going forward at this time, because that puts the Phase 1 HOA in a position to basically say, give us $5 million, I'm just making up a number, give us $5 million for the roads, or you just can't go forward with your development. And we want these parties to negotiate in good faith and come up with something that's reasonable for both the Phase 1 HOA and Clearview and takes care of the residents.
Yeah, I understand that, but these people have been sort of in purgatory for quite a long time. My concern is that it will not move any faster.
Well, what I can tell you is now that we have an actual physical agreement being circulated, things are moving a lot faster. And now that we have attorneys involved, things are moving a lot faster, from both sides.
Yes.
What is the role of Gus Zervos? He was Phase 1? Is that, so?
He was the developer.
Yeah,
of
so
Phase
how
1.
does that work with, as I understand it, the trucks are rolling through Phase 1, right? And that was his deal, and now Clearview is Phase 2.
Yep.
And these trucks are moving, so, and those roads are heavily damaged.
Correct. So Gus Servos was the original developer of Phase 1. He originally owned the entire development, and he sold the remaining phases to Clearview Homes. Now, the Phase 1 has been turned over to the Eagle Ridge HOA Association, who are now the party we are negotiating with.
Okay.
Well, who Clearview Homes is negotiating with.
Do they have money then? Does this HOA have money?
I mean, their president's here, you can ask
Yeah.
him.
I mean, that's gonna take a lot of money, right? I mean, it's,
So, you made a comment earlier on, you said something to the effect of depending how tonight's meeting goes. What did you mean by that? Did you?
Can you remind me what I said?
It was something to do about.
What context?
It was something to do about the negotiation and the timing and
Oh, you mean
depending
our-
on how
yeah.
tonight's meeting goes.
I meant our meeting in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
It depends how our meeting, when we sit down with the township supervisor, Clearview Homes, their attorney, and the Phase 1 HOA and their attorney, how that meeting goes will determine how we move forward, and we'll have a really good understanding of how close the parties are to a final agreement. Hopefully, we can get a final agreement done at that meeting, but I can't promise you that. That would be great, but that would be glass half full optimism.
I don't want to be the only one talking here.
I have another
Yeah.
question for, unrelated to the HOA, a neighbor, spoke and said of a recorded easement. I obviously remember the case that we had an easement about. Are you aware of other recorded easements that we have to be wary of? And, I mean, the only access point I see is between lot 6 and 7. Is that what that is for? Or are these easements not really recorded that we're aware of?
I'm not aware. I'm aware of the road easement, which allows Phase 2 to access the development through Phase 1. There is a duty under that easement. My understanding is, I'm telling you this from memory, that they have a duty to repair any significant damage that they cause to the road. However, it's unclear from the easement how far their maintenance responsibilities go, which is why we really want a strong, unified control in place via this master maintenance agreement.
Well, the representation was from a rural road owner that said they had a deeded lake easement, and I don't see any plot maps that say that or whatnot, so I guess just to clean things up, if we can,
Well, what I can do is I
Make
can
sure.
pull that easement and review it for you.
yeah, I mean, if it does in fact exist.
There's nothing shown on any of these maps.
Even the previous ones with the other cases that were in
And
front of us.
frankly, that issue has come up before, and we've never been presented with any documentation of that issue. I have heard of that, I've heard that issue before, and I guess if there is an issue, if there is a deeded lake access, I guess we need to see it.
Yeah, so if that person who spoke
Correct.
sends it to, and brings it into
Brian.
the township offices, then it can be researched, obviously.
Correct.
Should be part of the site plan, listed and everything, right?
If it in fact exists,
Right,
yes.
if it exists, right.
one more.
Yeah, please.
Mr. Carl, is that an unusual number of cars to come through for, 234 out in one entrance? Is that above normal, below?
Yeah, the short answer to that is yes. And this really goes back to when the project was originally conceived back in the 1990s. there was actually permit access being proposed to Roar Road. And at that point in time, because of concerns expressed not only by Roar Road residents, but by Orion Township residents, and my recollection is even the Orion Township Board, the Township Board essentially agreed to not require a full access to Roar Road, but to only require emergency access. So, no, it's not ideal. But there is at least emergency access so that if there is a problem, emergency vehicles can enter through Roar Road and be able to access these properties in case there is an emergent situation.
And that's a gravel road right now? Is it like gravel, then there's like a pipe gate there?
Right.
That's just a temporary gate at this point in time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, we were, of course, with 2 amendments, correct? That was the application to amend it for the addition of lots. That's a major amendment. And that's what we had the public hearing for, correct?
Well, you also had a public hearing on the site plan simply because we.
Requires that.
Yeah, correct.
So it's considered for both of it?
Well, you need to take, your actions need to be separate. I mean, you could conceivably take action on one and table the other, or take action on both, or table, your options are to, to be honest, I see no reason not to take action on the major amendment.
It's a determination that it's a major amendment,
Well,
correct?
it's a determination of major amendment, and you could act on that. Adding the 4 acres of property and eliminating the disputed easement in that case is, to me, pretty straightforward. What you decide to do with the balance of this is up to you.
Can I make a comment on the addition of the property? You mentioned some things earlier. I don't normally disagree with our chairman, but I do disagree about the fencing thing. I would never want to restrict a private property owner with a predetermined fence, and also restrict nature from coming in and out. And I guess if we do have a problem in the township with wetlands and eagle, maybe we should relook at our ordinance and put teeth into it or whatnot, but there's wetlands all over this township. There's people that abut against them. If somebody's not a good neighbor, turn them in, that's what you do. So, but I just, sorry, Chairman, but I don't see the fence there myself. With what Mr. Kyle was just talking about, eliminating that problem parcel and adding this to the development, yes, I don't have an issue with that, but obviously the concerns of the neighbors and the HOA represent a big problem on the rest of the site plan. That's all.
Yeah, and I can back off on the fence. I think the signage idea is a good one, Dick. I just worry about, what I don't want is 13 pathways that are beaten through this wetland area, and I just think that's gonna destroy that wetlands area, so I think there's valid concerns about that, so I can back off on the fence, but there's gotta be a way to inform and enforce those limits that's gonna work.
Some notification, like the signs or something.
Yeah, like
Something
maybe
posted along there.
Yeah, maybe
annual inspections of eagle, or I don't know what, but I don't, there can't be 13 different footpaths through that wetlands. That's not gonna work.
Without a permit, it is.
Yeah, unless, and how dare you disagree with me?
Never have any disagreement
Clearview.
I know I was supposed to apologize when I did it.
Yeah, it just seemed like we're here, we're still at the same spot.
I don't know, in my mind, I guess I'm just gonna speak out loud as far
Yeah.
as my opinion goes. I think that we should just table the whole thing until there's a update on what progress is made. And I don't think, you know, one more month after everything that we've heard is gonna hurt the developer greatly, so.
Is there a strong encouragement for the parties to resolve their issues in there?
Well, I guess that's what I'm getting at. To me, if we don't see some progress on everything being made, then, you know, I think the next step decision would be a little easier than tonight, so.
We're not in the room, and we don't know if both parties are negotiating in good faith, and it's, on some level, it's none of our business. But they've got to negotiate in good faith, they've got to be reasonable towards the solution, both parties have to give and take. Because I'm okay with postponing this, but I'm not okay with I'm not
Doing
okay
nothing.
with doing nothing.
Right.
If I'd like, I'm assuming we're gonna have, if we postpone, one party's we're gonna really get their attention and get them to the table, but the other party can't look at it like we're giving them a blank check.
Right.
It's gotta be reasonable negotiation on both parties' behalf.
I think
Right,
the
you know
only
what I'm
thing we
saying?
can do is take, I guess, advice from our attorneys to report on that, and I guess we'll have to make our judgment based on that.
I mean, I want assurances that negotiations are occurring in good faith to resolve this. Both parties come to the table to resolve this, because both have to work together on this. This is a mess.
I guess I feel for the residents. You know, there's been a good turnout here of people to try and explain their side, and I just think that, you know, we need to. I think the township's already committed to helping, or we wouldn't have the attorney involved trying to mediate what's going on already. So I guess I don't want to say we haven't done anything, that, you know, but obviously more needs to happen quicker. So.
I have no objection with the phase two. I have no objection with moving forward, but it can't be on the backs of people who are being impacted by this. You know, we need assurances. I need assurances at least. I'm only one vote, but they gotta be working together in good faith to come up with a resolution that's gonna benefit everybody. And it, you know, it may be a little more painful for some of the residents than maybe they think it's gonna be, but everyone needs to move forward here, because this is just, I feel, and I heard some comments today, you know, not being listened to, or I heard some people say, you know, it was nice that they finally felt like they have a voice. We heard every word you said. I feel for the residents on this. This, when I say it's a mess, I've listened to every word. It's a mess. I think we all want the same thing, and that's for everyone here to win.
But we have both parties here, so maybe we could ask them about good faith negotiations.
I don't suggest that you
Well,
get involved in the negotiations.
We've got.
No, we're not getting involved, we're just asking whether they.
And it's unfair to both parties to do so, frankly, at this
Yeah,
point.
we've got our township attorney sitting here, and she's assuring us that there is progress. So what I would like to do is postpone this, but again, this isn't a blank check. The other, both sides have to work together on this, because we're gonna get a status report. Dick, go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, you know, the commission made a wise decision to turn this over to the township attorney to attempt to resolve. The fact that it has taken this period of time is not the least bit surprising, especially when you hear how complicated, you know, the issues really are. And a lot has been said about Clearview, but they weren't the original developer, Mr. Zervos, of Phase One. And so he does have some responsibility in this particular regard also, but he's not here to defend himself. And, you know, so, you know, no need to say anything more about that. The one thing I do want to say, though, that unfortunately, no one should have been misled about the size of this project. This project has been in existence since it was originally proposed, I believe, in 1989. And essentially, the layout of what you're seeing here, with the exception of the golf course being gone, is pretty much consistent with how this project has been planned for 30 years. And for economic conditions, developer issues, a whole variety of reasons, you know, we are only at the point where phase one is complete, and now Clearview would like to continue with phase two. You are very correct, however, in the fact that the successful resolution of this issue can only come through future phases being developed.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the money's gonna come from to help assist in and be part of solving the problems. So, that's why it's important that parties come together in a realistic manner in terms of resolving this.
Yeah, it's a paradigm, because the future units are gonna help resolve the problem. That is compounded by the future units.
Correct.
I get, it's a mess.
Well.
But we can get through it. We being you.
We're working on it.
I suggest the commission proceed with some type of motion here.
Yeah, we've had the public hearing, we've opened and closed it, we heard every word. I think we should postpone this at least 30 days to get.
Well, I was gonna say, I'll move to postpone any action on this item on PC file 2022-006 until the next scheduled meeting. Agreed.
What about if we, not to jump in, what if we were to condition it more on the negotiations, some type of report from the township attorney indicating that substantial progress is made, or something? I'm not the attorney here, but something, rather than a date, an action or a milestone, so that we can encourage both parties to get together and move this along. We all want the same thing. We want a successful development that benefits Clearview, benefits the neighbors, and everyone moves on, gets on with their life, and benefits the neighbors affected by everybody. Everyone moves on. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah,
So like
it's
some type of a milestone or a benchmark. Ms. Ellis, I would welcome
Yeah.
any feedback that you'd have on that matter.
So, it would be appropriate to condition it on a legal opinion from the township attorney indicating that the parties have continued to negotiate in good faith and progress has been made. Now, what progress means to you might mean different things, but, I would say if we're still talking and one party hasn't left the table and we're making progress,
I would use a Weasley word like substantial progress, something
Okay.
that we just can't keep kicking the can down the road. We gotta make hay here. And like I said, there's gonna, my gut feeling says there's gonna be a little bit of pain on both sides here.
I would recommend you set it to a date certain, so, maybe next month and we can give you an update. Maybe we go into a closed session, we give you an update on because we don't necessarily wanna reveal what the parties' positions are if they haven't, full positions, that they haven't disclosed to each other. It might hurt their negotiation process. And then you make the determination as a planning commission whether that represents a substantial progress.
I don't think 30 days is enough, though. By the time, we gotta get packets out, we have to schedule a meeting, everyone's gotta work the calendars, meet, prepare a report. 30 days is pushing it.
The thing that we just postpone until we hear update from the
Okay.
attorney at the next meeting,
Okay.
and then we can decide whether it should be longer or not. So.
Can I interject one
Yeah.
thing before the motion goes through? I think you kind of spoke about it, and I did as well, about the addition of lots, but I think we owe Clearview some direction. I know there were some conditions that Mr. Carlisle had and the engineers had, and obviously the attorney with what's going on with the sub, but you know, it's their meeting, and, you know, I feel we owe them direction. I think I gave some direction, but I mean, we haven't heard from some of the people. Just briefly, since we've been here a while. I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
Yeah, I would like to, if, Mr. Ottman, if you have not shared the letter from the North Morgan Lake Association with Clearview, I'd like you to do so, because I think that there's some very reasonable recommendations in there that are easily achieved. And I would also like the demarcation of the wetland area north of units 9 through 19. That needs to be demarcated with placards and to inform. I'd also like the one woman who spoke about the easement, I'd like her to connect with Brian and resolve that, make sure that's addressed. That doesn't have to be part of a resolution, but that's direction that we're.
Yeah, I just wondered if anybody had anything else for that, because
Anyone
it
else?
kind of went to the side.
Yeah, well, we don't wanna harm Clearview's income stream.
No.
Because, like we say, that's part of the money that will be needed. But we wanna, strongly encourage some action in a reasonable amount of time.
The sooner they get a shovel in the ground, the sooner they can generate revenue to help
Yeah.
deal with this.
Well, I told you guys 2 weeks, let me try to get a meeting scheduled next week, but that's dependent, of course, on everyone's availability. But I'll, at least for my part, make our office available.
Okay.
Sorry, Ron.
Sorry, Ron.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm not gonna interrupt you anymore.
No, I don't know, to me, I moved to postpone on, PC file 2022-006, until a meeting can be scheduled and, update, given to the board, the planning commission on, progress made, in this matter.
I second. Any discussion on the motion? Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Boersma, absent. Mr. Galley.
Yes.
Mr. Lockren, absent. Mr. Pytel.
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie.
Yes.
Chairman Sabadan.
Yes.
Ms. Tully, yes.
Before everyone gets up and leaves, thank you for your decorum this evening. It's a very emotional issue, and it's very much appreciated by everybody on this board. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 8, approval of minutes. We'll, I guess we'll do them one at a time. H1, regular meeting minutes of May 12th, 2022. Does anyone have any revisions they want to recommend? No? No?
we've done 'em.
So I move approval of H1, regular meeting minutes, May 12th, 2022.
Support.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 5-0 approved. Next item is item H1, special meeting minutes of May 26th, 2022. Anyone have any revisions? I move approval of those minutes. Looking for a second.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes as provided signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We have an abstention of Mr.
Yeah,
Ritchie,
Mr.
so that is a 4-0-1 vote, four ayes and one abstention. Meetings are approved. Next item is item I, consultants report, town center design guidelines.
Yeah.
Mr. Carlisle.
All right, there's actually 2 items that have been put on your desk. We've updated the town center design guidelines because from time to time, we find out that the products that we specify are no longer available, but there's similar type product, and we felt that, it's probably time to do that. Plus, I discovered that when I was reviewing it, that even though we require we refer in the ordinance for the North Sashabaw overlay to follow the town center design guidelines, there was no mention of that in the actual guidelines, so that's all been added in there. Review it, if you have any questions about it. These are sort of the detailed things that we require and refer people to. We can talk about that more fully at the next meeting, but Brian and I discussed the need to get that up to date, and it's been done. The second thing on your desk tonight is a copy of a report that we've just finished and issued as part of the master plan. It's a retail market analysis. Much earlier in the year, when we were really starting out with the background studies, I suggested to Brian that because some of the comments that came out of, we heard about Walden Village, about either too much commercial or not enough commercial or not the right type of commercial. We've never done a market, retail market analysis as part of any master plans. And we do it frequently with many other master plans that we do for communities. So the cover letter, I think, is fairly explanatory. I won't get into detail, but the conclusion is that within, every market area from which we measure, there are pretty significant deficiencies in the types of goods and services that township residents could buy if these things were located in the township, but instead obviously must be buying them elsewhere. And it's in all the same categories that you would probably think. All things food, there's deficiencies, and in a lot of home goods services and things like that, home goods, there's deficiencies. We can talk about this a little bit more after you've had a chance to read through it, but I think it will provide you with some guidance as we move forward with a number of other properties in the Sashabaw corridor and on Dixie Highway for redevelopment opportunities. Perhaps the types of businesses that, if we can, we should be trying to emphasize and target.
Great.
Okay.
I look forward to reading it.
So I ask you do review that, and we'll have a more detailed discussion at the next Planning Commission meeting. And we'll put both items on the agenda, so in case you have any questions about the design guidelines, we'll be able to respond to those. And we can get into a little bit more detail here, because I didn't want to get into a lot of detail about methodology and everything else here. I think as you read through the report, it'll be somewhat intuitive in terms of how these things are done, because it's all based on rooftops, number of households and household spending, and the income that's actually exists within a given market area.
I didn't see a design guideline thing in here. Oh, it was part of the packet. Yeah. You said you left it on our desk, so I'm flipping through this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was
You
just
put it in
thumbing
the
through it
packet.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I left you a lot of stuff.
Your electronic desk, how's that?
Gotcha.
It says we're deficient in alcoholic beverages.
Yep, especially after a meeting like this.
Any other comments?
No.
Any discussion points? I would just say that, Brittany, thank you for being here this evening. It was very helpful for the last item. There was a lot of comments, so you had to kind of patiently wade through it all, but a lot of participation by residents tonight, which was great. I make a motion, we adjourn.
Support.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourned, 9:25 PM.